Chapter 1478. After the war, Yumekawa Taro, the cannoneer who had bombarded the Laojun platform, came to Louis again. He knelt down in front of the Laojun platform to repent. According to him, his shots were very accurate. The cannoneer had hit the Laojun platform, but he couldn't explain why the cannoneer didn't explode. Yumekawa Taro believed that it was the blessing of the Taishang Lotsu. He even set up an apology monument at the Lotsu platform. However, it was later changed to a peace monument. The truth of the matter could no longer be investigated. However, after the Grand Elder platform became a dimensional zone, it had indeed become a very magical place. Typical dimensional zones would have some dimensional creatures, but the Grand Supreme Elder platform didn't have any. It couldn't be said that there weren't any. It could only be said that there weren't any native dimensional creatures. Instead, many dimensional creatures from other dimensional zones had fled to the Grand Elder platform to seek refuge. Typical dimensional zones didn't repel humans, but they would strongly repel creatures from other dimensional zones. Creatures from different dimensional zones rarely ran around. However, the Grand Supreme Elder platform didn't have such a situation. Any dimensional creature, including humans, could freely enter and exit the Grand Supreme Elder platform. However, there was one thing: they couldn't kill inside. This rule was very similar to the one at Mount Laojun. Killing was prohibited, but the difference was that if one were to kill on Mount Laojun, the consequences would be more severe. Legend had it that a group of humans chased a rare dimensional creature all the way to the Grand Supreme Elder platform. The group of humans only shot the dimensional creature after it stepped into the Grand Supreme Elder platform with one of its hooves. They also knew the taboo of the Grand Supreme platform, so they were somewhat hesitant in the beginning. However, the dimensional creature was very rare to begin with. Back then, they discovered that it had a companion egg in its body. In the end, those people couldn't resist the temptation and ran to pick up the corpse. In the end, a beam of light descended from the sky and took all of them away. From then on, no one had ever seen them again. The locals said that the Grand Supreme Elder couldn't stand it anymore. He personally took them in and brought them to the Heaven Realm. As for whether it was true or not, there was no way to judge. Since then, no one dared to kill in the Laojun Tai, not even injure it. Of course, the dimensional creatures that escaped into the Grand Supreme Elder platform wouldn't harm humans there. Therefore, the Grand Supreme Elder platform was one of the few dimensional zones where humans and dimensional creatures coexisted peacefully. Zhouwen had heard of it before. However, Louis was a county under guide city. Zhouwen had never been there, so he had never entered the Grand Supreme Elder platform. In that case, the Grand Supreme Elder platform is indeed very suitable for building a human city. Is there enough space there? Zhouwen asked. The original Grand Lord platform wasn't too big, but after it became a dimensional zone, the space has increased a lot. It shouldn't be a problem for it to accommodate 1 million people. Zhou said. The Elder Tai, Zhou and Tai. Jean, Grand Supreme Tai, Temple, Zhou, 1 San 1 and Tai Zhou, III said I is, was, to s, down to, San Ludo to say. T and, San, Tang, Tun, to, and, to. T then Y? Zhouwen asked. That's because the Grand Supreme Elder platform is occupied by a dimensional creature that doesn't need to abide by the rules of the Grand Supreme Elder platform. That dimensional creature can kill at will in the Grand Supreme Elder platform without being punished. Any human that dares to enter will be killed by it. No one dares to enter now. Yu Qiubai sighed and said, if we want to build a city in the Grand Supreme Elder platform, we have to kill that dimensional creature first or chase it out. Why didn't I know of such a thing? When did that dimensional creature appear? What does it look like? Zhouwen was surprised when he heard that. The Grand Supreme Elder platform was, after all, the place where Grand Supreme Elder had ascended. Although he didn't know if it was real, how could an ordinary dimensional creature destroy a place that was related to Grand Supreme Elder? Zhou felt that there was something odd about this matter. After all, Zhou had a deep understanding of how terrifying Mount Laojun was. The Grand Supreme Elder platform was somewhat similar to Mount Laojun. Zhou felt that a dimensional creature that could cause trouble there was definitely not simple. I didn't dare enter. I only heard from others that the dimensional creature looks very strange. It looks like a lion, but not a tiger. It has scales all over its body, like the legendary Qilin. It's more than 3 meters tall and comes and goes like the wind. No one can escape its bite. Yu Qiubai told Zhou when all the information he had previously gathered. However, the information he had gathered was gathered from a few survivors, so there shouldn't be too much of a discrepancy. Zhou thought carefully for a while, but he couldn't figure out the origins of the dimensional creature. He only felt that for a group of people to be able to see it, their levels weren't too high. Could it be that the dimensional creature's ability is similar to my Dao scripture? It can destroy taboo powers, so it can kill at will at the Grand Supreme Elder platform? Zhou guessed. Zhou thought for a moment and decided to head to the Grand Supreme Elder platform to take a look. Since the average person had a chance of escaping, it shouldn't be a problem for him to escape even if he couldn't beat it. The situation was urgent. There were hundreds of thousands of people in Guide City who were homeless. They couldn't possibly stay outside the school all the time. Once they didn't have food or water, it would be easy for problems to arise. He had to find a place to settle down as soon as possible. Then, he would give them something to do. At the very least, they would be able to eat. Otherwise, it would be difficult to resolve the situation once something went wrong. After discussing with Yu Qiubai decided to return to school first and stabilize those people. He would sign a contract with those who could. He would split some, rope in some, and suppress some. He didn't want to cause too much conflict. No matter what, he had to persist until Zhou found a suitable dimensional zone. Zhou rushed to the Grand Supreme Elder platform alone. Before he left, he handed the chick to Yu Qiubai. With the chick by Yu Qiubai's side, if anything really happened, the chick would be able to hold the fort as long as no calamity grade interfered. Although the distance between regions had widened as Earth's dimensions deepened, Louis was very close to begin with. Therefore, Zhou didn't spend too much time rushing to the Grand Supreme Elder platform. From afar, the Grand Supreme Elder platform looked like a paradise on Earth. The blue-tiled houses were surrounded by white clouds, making them look rather immortal. There were quite a number of buildings in the periphery of the Grand Supreme Elder platform, all of which belonged to the Grand Supreme Elder platform's dimensional zone. Zhou could only see the silhouettes of the buildings from the outside, but he couldn't see what was inside. When he arrived at the entrance of the dimensional zone, Zhou wasn't in a rush to enter. He first circled the area, hoping to see if he could find the tiny palm symbol. Chapter 1479. Zhou came in front of the memorial arch and saw the words, Door of Profundity, engraved on it. After passing through the memorial arch, he would arrive at Enlightened Tao Palace. The Grand Supreme Elder platform was inside. Zhou looked outside the memorial arch for a while, but he didn't see the tiny palm symbol. All he could do was pass through the memorial arch and continue walking in. The memorial arch wasn't considered a dimensional zone. Once he entered Enlightened Tao Palace, he would truly enter a dimensional zone. The entrance to Enlightened Tao Palace couldn't be considered grand. Instead, the two turrets on the east and west sides were more eye-catching. Although the two turrets weren't big, they were considered antique. On the right turret was a huge bell, while on the left turret was a huge drum. Zhou had previously heard that killing was forbidden in the Enlightened Tao Palace. All sorts of creatures could coexist peacefully. Apart from killing, the bell tower and drum tower were not to be randomly ascended, much less struck. If it wasn't done properly, it might cost someone their life. Some people also said that good things would happen after striking the bell or drum. There were all kinds of opinions, so Zhou didn't know which was true and which was false. After all, he had nothing better to do, so he wouldn't strike it. After searching a few times outside, he didn't find the tiny palm symbol. This left Zhou depressed, but on second thought, even if there's a tiny palm symbol, it's useless. There aren't any dimensional creatures in Enlightened Tao Palace to begin with. Now, the dimensional creatures inside are all foreign. Even if I download the dungeon, the foreign dimensional creatures won't appear in the game dungeon. In the end, I still have to enter to see the dimensional creature myself. Thankfully, Zhou wasn't too afraid. If the dimensional creature could disobey the rules of the Grand Supreme Elder platform, he could do the same with the Tao Sutra and the heaven-opening scripture. Of course, the real reason why Zhou was so confident was that the ancient Sovereign Sutra had advanced to the Calamity grade. Although his true level was still at the Terror grade, once he activated the human Sovereign Sacrificial Domain, he wasn't inferior to a true Calamity. Coupled with the minor Heavenly Cycle-Killing Array and the Soul Reflection Mirror, even if the creature was really at the Calamity grade, it was still uncertain who would kill who. There's nothing to be afraid of. It's just one word: kill it. Zhou summoned the Dragon Imprisonment armor and put it on. At the same time, he used the Ancient Sovereign Sutra and Tao Sutra and summoned the Soul Reflection Mirror. Only then did he walk towards the entrance of Enlightened Tao Palace. After passing through the gate, he saw a small square. The pavilions inside were like a mountain range, and he had no idea how many buildings there were. When Zhou came, Yu Qiubai had given him a map, but now, many of the buildings inside didn't match the map Yu Qiubai had given him. Of course, this wasn't because Yu Qiubai wanted to harm him by giving him a fake map. Instead, it was because dimensional zones constantly changed. The internal space stretched and new buildings appeared. The layout naturally changed accordingly. However, no matter how the internal environment changed, the general layout wouldn't change much. The Laojun platform should be at the back of the Ming Dao Palace. Zhou scanned his surroundings and saw many bird-type dimensional creatures resting nearby. There were also some tiny beasts playing on the nearby grass. He couldn't help but roll his eyes. Fighting and killing isn't the goal. Dealing with that dimensional creature is key. A cultured person like me isn't suitable for fighting and killing. It's better to use my brain. I heard that dimensional creature only kills humans and doesn't harm other dimensional creatures. From the looks of it, it's true. Now that I'm using the Demon God Bloodline Pattern's ability to mimic and transform into one of the dimensional creatures, I can boldly search for its traces without worry. Perhaps I might even have a chance to win with my wits and easily finish it off. The more Zhou thought about it, the more he felt that it made sense. Therefore, he sneaked to the side of the grass and engraved the Demon God Bloodline catalog. With the disqualifiers as support, the Demon God body's ability to mimic and transform wasn't as weak as before. The disqualifiers were extremely useful in augmenting the Demon God body. Although Zhou had tried his best to converge his aura and reveal the Demon God body's aura, the tiny beasts on the grass still retreated into the forest warily when they saw him approach. Clearly, they were still very wary of him. A few of the little beasts looked clumsy and slow. One of the little beasts even tripped over a tree root that protruded out of the ground. The chubby and hairy body of the meaty head fell to the ground, giving off the feeling of Garfield. Of course, the tiny beast wasn't Garfield. It was probably some feline animal. It was only as tall as Zhou knee, but because it was too fat, its movements were very clumsy. Its face was also plump and round. Its eyes were black, big and round, as though it was in a daze. It wasn't as ferocious as a tiger or a feline animal, but more like a panda. However, its fur wasn't black and white. It was a grayish or bluish color. I'll transform it. Seeing that it was the stupidest and the slowest, Zhou directly used the demon god body. As his eyes scanned its body, his body also changed. In just a moment, two clumsy tiny beasts appeared on the grass. Be it in appearance or aura, they were identical, like twins. The tiny beast that was about to escape smelled something and turned its head. It realized that there was a creature that looked identical to it. It immediately stopped in its tracks. This fellow definitely wasn't too smart. It turned its head and sized up Zhou curiously. It even approached and used its nose to sniff Zhou scent. Even Zhou was somewhat impressed by his transformation ability. After sniffing for a while, the tiny beast actually treated Zhou as one of its own. It even leaned its body against Zhou as though it wanted a hug. Be good. You're already a mature beast. Let's go somewhere more exciting to play. Zhou used it as a cover. As he played with it, he walked to the right of Enlightened Tao Palace. If he walked straight, he might directly encounter the creature. Zhou planned on taking the long corridor on the right. It was best not to alarm the dimensional creature that killed anyone it saw. As Zhou had become a dimensional creature, the dimensional creatures on the way were no longer afraid when they saw him. They did what they needed to do and treated him as though he didn't exist. Zhou lured the tiny beast all the way to the bell tower. From afar, he could see the bell on the bell tower that looked like it was made of iron. It was taller than a person and engraved with the words, Enlightened Tao Palace. Zhou didn't plan on causing trouble, so he naturally didn't go up the bell tower. After walking for a while, before he reached the corridor beside the bell tower, he saw a stone pavilion in the forest beside it. It wasn't rare for there to be a stone pavilion. In the Enlightened Tao Palace after the mutation, there were at least 100 stone pavilions. However, there was a behemoth in the stone pavilion. It was staring at him unblinkingly with its blood-red eyes that resembled wheels. Chapter 1480. It can't be such a coincidence, right? Zhou mumbled inwardly. The behemoth in the stone pavilion looked like a bear no matter how he looked at it. It was a grayish-blue bear, and Zhou's present appearance was somewhat similar to it. This little beast isn't a cat. So it's a bear? Isn't your looks a little too deceiving? Zhou sensed that the bear's aura was extremely terrifying. It hadn't even flared up, but its aura was already surging like a tsunami. Even Zhou felt his heart skip a beat. It was definitely at the calamity grade. Zhou had always been in awe of creatures like bears. Although many people felt that animals like bears were very stupid, giving off the feeling that they were easy to bully. Zhou had the same thoughts when he was very young. However, when he was in secondary school, Yu Qiubai had told him some legends about bears, completely subverting Zhou's understanding of bears. This made him subconsciously more careful every time he saw a bear-type dimensional creature. In fact, in the earliest legends of the East District, bears occupied a very important position. Yellow Emperor Xianyuan was from the Yu Xiong family. In the legend of Yu the Great's flood control, Yu the Great had also transformed into a bear to fight all sorts of aquatic beasts. Before the spring and autumn warring states period, there were many legends about the divine bear. It was also the earliest image of totem worship. The rise of dragons came much later. The reason why ancient people worshipped bears so much was not only because of their immense strength and explosive combat strength, but also because of their hibernation habit. Bears could not eat or drink for months. When they appeared again, they would give people the feeling that they had been resurrected from the dead. Therefore, the ancient people worshipped bears very much. Even the legendary chaos beasts, in some versions, might have been created with bears as the blueprint. After Zhou heard Yu Qiubai's story, his impression of bears had changed greatly. Therefore, when he saw a calamity-grade bear here, Zhou subconsciously became cautious and didn't attack immediately. The giant bear only stared at him and didn't launch any attacks. The bear's blood-red eyes looked at the little beast beside it before looking at Zhou, as though it was in a dilemma. Zhou's heart stirred. I see. It can't tell who its child is, so it hesitated and didn't take action. As Zhou was pondering over it, the giant bear got up and walked out of the stone pavilion. It circled Zhou and Little Bear a few times before extending its claws and throwing them onto its back. Zhou was given a fright. Thankfully, his psyche thread was thick enough. He resisted the urge to attack and finally arrived on the giant bear's back. Which bastard said that the calamity creatures here look like lions and tigers but aren't tigers? Look my ass. This is basically a bear. Many thoughts flashed through Zhou mind as he stood on the giant bear's back. With his current position, it was undoubtedly the best opportunity to assassinate the giant bear. As long as he pulled out the celestial culling sword and stabbed the giant bear's neck or other places with weaker defense, he might be able to eat calamity-grade bear meat today. With this in mind, Zhou couldn't help but salivate. He had no choice but to gulp. However, Zhou quickly rejected this thought. There's no reason for a calamity-grade creature to have a negative intelligence, right? Even if it can't tell who its child is, don't tell me it doesn't even know how many children it has? This was clearly illogical. The giant bear knew that one of the creatures wasn't its child, but it still placed two on its back. There was definitely something wrong with this. I think this bear is definitely trying to trick me. It must have some scheme waiting for me. That must be it. I can't act rashly. I can't let it see through me. I have to figure out what scheme it has first. Zhou resisted the urge to assassinate the giant bear. The giant bear twisted its body and slowly walked through the forest. Its body was huge, but when it moved, its body seemed to transform into a blue phantom. When its body collided with trees or other plants, it passed through them. Even Zhou and Little Bear, who were on its back, were affected by this force. Zhou watched as the trees passed through his body, but they seemed illusory. It left him astonished. Zhou was proficient in spatial powers. He was also proficient in spatial teleportation and spatial traversal abilities. He was very certain that this was definitely not a spatial ability. How strange. Where did this bear come from? With its level and abilities, there are probably only a few creatures on Earth that can fight it. Why would it need to hide from its enemies and come to a place like the Old Lord's platform? The more Zhou thought about it, the stranger he found it. The more Zhou thought about it, the more he felt that there was something wrong with the bear's origins. He didn't dare attack it casually. The giant bear carried Zhou and Little Bear as it slowly walked deeper into the bright Dao Palace. Be it the forest or the various buildings, nothing could stop the giant bear's advance. It was like a ghost that didn't exist in the world. It strolled through the mortal world, but it wasn't bound by anything in the mortal world. Zhou saw all sorts of buildings and ancient trees. There were also many dimensional creatures around, but they didn't dare approach the giant bear. Once they discovered it, they would quickly retreat. They only retreated, not out of fear. Furthermore, after retreating, they watched the giant bear from afar. It was obvious that they weren't particularly afraid. Don't tell me this fellow wants to take me to the Old Lord's platform? What's the point of doing this? What's in it for it? Could it be that there's something on the Old Lord's platform that allows it to distinguish who its true child is? Just as Zhou was guessing, the giant bear slowly stopped and didn't continue forward. Zhou looked around and realized that he hadn't reached the Old Lord's platform yet. In front of the giant bear was an ancient well. There was a rack and a wooden bucket used to draw water. When it arrived, the giant bear lay down and carried Zhou and Little Bear down to the well. Then, like a human, it picked up the wooden bucket and placed it in the well. It shook the wooden rack in a bid to draw water. What's this fellow trying to do? Zhou sized up the surroundings and saw the words, Holy Spring Well, engraved on a rock. He immediately knew where he was. This holy spring well was rather famous. Legend had it that when Old Lord was about to ascend, the green ox that he had tied to the well seemed to know that its master was about to pass away. It couldn't help but moo as though it was crying. Tears of blood flowed from its eyes. Old Lord couldn't bear to part with the green ox, but the green ox was mortal, so it was impossible for it to ascend with him. In desperation, the Grand Supreme Elder poured all the golden pills that he had personally refined into the well, causing the spring water in the originally ordinary well to surge on its own. The green ox drank the holy spring water every day, and in the future, it would ascend and reunite with its master. Chapter 1481. The holy spring well seemed to have dried up in the past. After enlightened Tao Palace turned into a dimensional zone, the holy spring well produced water again. After the spring water flowed again, someone had once tried drinking the water from the holy spring well, but it didn't have any special effects. Not to mention ascending to immortality, it didn't even have any healing effects. While Zhou was still pondering over it, the giant bear had already brought out a bucket filled with water. If it were in the past, the water wouldn't have been too clear, but now, the water in the bucket looked even cleaner and more transparent than pure water. He could even smell the sweetness of the spring water. Now, Earth's ecological environment is many times better than before. Speaking of which, is this considered a form of Earth's self-recovery? Zhou couldn't help but think. The giant bear placed the bucket between Zhou and the little bear. The little bear immediately lowered its head to lick the water in the bucket. When Zhou saw this, he had no choice but to lean his head over. Otherwise, if the giant bear saw through him, all his previous forbearance would have been in vain. Now, Zhou wasn't too interested in killing the giant bear. With the huge changes in enlightened Tao Palace, Zhou only wanted to know if there were any changes to the Grand Supreme Elder platform. In the past, the Grand Supreme Elder platform had a total of 33 steps from the bottom to the top. It meant that the Grand Supreme Elder had ascended to the 33 skies. It was unknown what the Grand Supreme Elder platform had become. In fact, Zhou was somewhat looking forward to it before coming. The Tao Sutra he cultivated came from Mount Laojun, and this place was called the Grand Supreme Elder platform. Perhaps they had some relationship and he could use the Grand Supreme Elder platform to advance the Tao Sutra to the Calamity stage. However, along the way, he didn't discover anything that could advance the Tao Sutra. At the very least, the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder in his body didn't resonate. As Zhou thought about it, he drank the water. Soon, he and the little bear finished the bucket of water. Finally, the little bear hugged the bucket with its limbs and rolled to the ground, pouring the remaining water into its mouth. Zhou didn't find anything special about drinking the water. There wasn't rich essence energy contained in it, nor did he discover any special attribute. Apart from the taste of sweet spring water, he really didn't discover any benefits from the water. Seeing that the bucket was empty, the giant bear took it away and quickly filled another bucket of water. It placed it between Zhou and the little bear again, seemingly allowing them to continue drinking. Little bear consciously drank the water, but Zhou wasn't very happy. Although he could drink it, he wasn't an animal in water. Why would he drink so much water? Thinking was just thinking, but he still had to drink water, and he couldn't drink less than Little Bear. If Little Bear drank a lot every day and he only drank a little, it would inevitably arouse the giant bear's suspicion. Zhou never expected the bear to draw water one bucket after another without any intention of stopping. As soon as the water in the bucket was finished, the giant bear would immediately fetch another bucket of water. In the beginning, Zhou foolishly fought with the bear to drink, but after a few buckets, he couldn't take it anymore. All he could do was try his best to drink less and let the bear drink more. After 10 buckets, Zhou couldn't take it anymore. He basically stuck out his tongue to lick it a few times and couldn't drink any more. Now, Zhou was thinking that even if he were to fight the bear to the death, he wouldn't be willing to drink water again. To his surprise, the giant bear seemed to ignore Zhou's obvious behavior. All it did was watch from the side, waiting for Little Bear to finish drinking before fetching water again. Zhou had only heard of bottomless buckets in the past, but this was the first time he had seen a water bucket like Little Bear that couldn't fill its stomach. The bear was like a bottomless pit. It had drunk more than half of the 10 buckets of water, but it still looked like it couldn't drink enough. Its stomach didn't become very big either. Could it be that the water in the holy spring really has some benefits? But I drank quite a bit too. Why don't I feel anything? Logically speaking, I've been drinking it for so long. Whatever benefits it has, it should be effective now, right? But if there aren't any benefits, why is that bear so greedy? It's like it can't fill its stomach. Zhouwen was considering if he should drink more. What if there were really benefits? However, this thought was instantly rejected by him. He really couldn't drink anymore. He wanted to vomit when he saw the water. Forget it. If the water in the holy spring is really beneficial, I'll just find an opportunity to extract some in the future and place it in the chaos space. I'll eat, cook, and make soup with holy spring water. I'll even wash clothes with holy spring water. Zhouwen only had this thought. He couldn't bear to use holy spring water to wash clothes. What's that giant bear trying to do? When Zhouwen saw that the giant bear was still constantly fetching water for Little Bear to drink, he had more questions in his mind. However, he didn't know who to ask. In the end, Zhouwen decided to stand by the side and watch. He didn't even do anything. Zhouwen kept counting by the side. When the bear drank more than 30 buckets, it seemed to finally be full. It didn't finish the remaining half bucket of water and burped. Seeing that Little Bear was full, the giant bear didn't continue fetching water. It extended its claws and picked up Zhouwen and Little Bear, placing them back on its back. Then, it turned around and walked into the forest. The giant bear passed through the forest, and soon arrived in front of a building that resembled a mountain. Elder Lord Platform? Zhouwen took a careful look. Although the building was somewhat different from the Elder Lord Platform in the resources, there was nothing wrong with it. However, the height of the Elder Lord Platform was many times higher than before. A conservative estimate was that it had exceeded 100 meters. Although the Elder Lord Platform was much taller, its proportions hadn't changed. Therefore, it didn't look like it had changed much. Even the steps were the same, with only 33 steps. However, each step was 2 to 3 meters tall. It was quite troublesome for ordinary people to climb up. However, it wasn't troublesome for the giant bear. It used all 4 limbs to climb up step by step. I originally wanted to go up the Elder Lord Platform to take a look. This is perfect. I don't have to walk by myself, and I can even ride a bear up. This treatment is considered unique, right? Zhouwen sat steadily on the giant bear platform as the bear kept clinging to him, constantly leaning against him. The top of the Elder Lord Platform was right in front of him. Zhouwen sized up the top of the door and saw that the 3 words engraved on it weren't Elder Lord Platform, but Immortal Ascension Platform. At that moment, the door to the Immortal Ascension Platform was closed. From the outside, one couldn't see anything inside. As for the giant bear, it had already leaned against the door and didn't rush in immediately. Zhouwen's gaze was attracted by a pair of door frames on the left and right of the door. The door frame was shaped like a vertical drum. On the drum's surface was a picture of 2 dragons playing with a pearl. And above the door frame was a sculpture of some beast. Due to the passage of time, it was somewhat deformed. It was impossible to tell what the creature was. Just as Zhouwen was studying the exotic beast on the door frame, the giant bear suddenly leaped up and pounced at the door. In the next second there was a boom. Chapter 1482. The giant bear stood up and pounced on the door with its front paws, causing it to rumble. The door shook violently as though it would fly out at any moment, but it ultimately didn't open. Bam! 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 The giant bear slammed the door with its paws again and again. Zhouwen thought to himself, this is the Grand Supreme Elder Platform, the place where Grand Supreme Elder ascends. It would be a wonder if it can be opened with brute force. Crack! As Zhouwen was thinking, he suddenly heard something amiss. He hurriedly climbed onto the giant bear's shoulder and looked in the direction of the door. He saw that there were already many cracks on the door. Holy sh*t. No way? This can be opened with brute force? Zhou felt a chill run down his spine. Although Zhou hadn't tried smacking the door of the Grand Supreme Elder platform, he had tried many things on Mount Laojun. Ignoring the door, even the grass and trees on the Golden Peak seemed to be protected by immortal powers, making it difficult to damage them. A place like the Grand Supreme Elder platform was definitely not inferior to Mount Laojun. However, from the taboo power, it was only stronger than Mount Laojun. As the place where Grand Supreme Elder ascended, it was unimaginable that the door would crack. It couldn't be said that the door wasn't sturdy, nor could it be said that the Grand Supreme Elder platform's defenses weren't strong enough. It could only be said that the bear was too terrifying. Where did this bear come from? Zhou was somewhat glad that he hadn't taken action from the beginning. His mind raced as he searched for myths and legends related to bears. However, the myths and legends related to bears were basically from ancient times. There were too few that had been passed down, and Zhou only knew a few. Flying bear dreams, great U-bear transformation, and so on. However, after comparing them, they didn't seem to be similar to this giant blue bear. I've heard of legends about red bears and black bears. For example, the black bear spirit in Journey to the West is a black bear. However, I've never heard of this blue bear. Could it be that it's from another zone? Zhou didn't know much about the myths and legends of the other zones. After some thought, he couldn't think of any special bear-type mythical creature. The famous frost bear was white. Even if it had a tinge of blue, it would be frost blue. However, this bear was grayish-blue and didn't have any ice attribute. Pop, pop. As the giant bear pounded on the door, more and more cracks appeared on it. It looked like it was about to be smashed. Zhou and the little bear lay on the giant bear's shoulder as the flying sawdust hit them. Zhou picked up a piece of sawdust to take a look and saw a faint golden glow flowing within it. It didn't look like ordinary wood. Zhou pinched it hard. His strength was already infinitely close to the calamity grade. Logically speaking, it was just a piece of wood, and much of its fiber tissue had been destroyed, but he failed to deform it. Rumble! The door was smashed open by the bear's claws. The bear continued to exert its strength, making the hole bigger and bigger. In just a short while, the two doors were smashed to pieces by the bear. The giant bear's front paws landed on the ground as it crawled in through the broken door. The space on the Laojun platform wasn't big to begin with. After the dimensional transformation, it was only a few hundred square meters. On the right was the Spiritual Treasure Hall, on the left was the God of Wealth Hall, and including the main hall, there were only 3 halls. At this moment, the doors of the 3 halls were tightly shut. It was unknown what kind of deities were being worshipped inside. While Zhou was still sizing it up, the giant bear turned right after entering the door and arrived in front of a metal pillar that was stabbed into the ground. The metal pillar was thicker than a thigh, and the part that was exposed above the ground was more than a meter long. Its top was oval in shape, and its shape was somewhat strange. The metal pillar was already rusted, and it was unknown how many years it had been stuck there. Zhou actually didn't know much about the Laojun platform. He had never been here before, so he didn't know what the metal pillar was. The giant bear stood up again and hugged the metal pillar with its claws, about to pull it out. Boom! Boom! The giant bear suddenly exerted its strength, but the strength that could uproot a mountain only made the metal pillar rise a little. The entire Laojun platform shook as though there was an earthquake. The giant bear continued exerting its strength as it roared in an attempt to pull the metal pillar out. Its claws gripped the metal pillar tightly as it pulled it up bit by bit. Mount Laojun kept shaking. The 3 palaces were shaking, but the palace doors remained tightly shut, as though there was no one guarding them. Zhou had an odd expression as he thought to himself, "Isn't it said that the Laojun platform is personally guarded by the Grand Supreme Elder? Why isn't there any reaction? Could it be that the legends are wrong and this isn't the true place where the Grand Supreme Elder ascended?" However, on second thought, Zhou had another thought. Could it be that this giant bear is too terrifying? Even the power guarding the Laojun platform doesn't dare to stop it? The more Zhou thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. The taboo power of the Laojun platform wasn't fake. It was very similar to the taboo power of Mount Laojun. Mount Laojun had so many terrifying creatures guarding it, so it was impossible for there to be no guards here. Then, the only possibility was that the guards here were afraid of the giant bear and didn't dare to stop it. The metal pillar had already been pulled out more than a meter long by the giant bear. Soon, the entire metal pillar was pulled out. The huge metal pillar was like a toy in the giant bear's hands. It sniffed the metal pillar for a while before revealing an exposed expression. It grabbed the metal pillar with both claws and threw it out. With a bang, the metal pillar tore through the wall of the main hall. Most of it was inserted in, leaving only the end exposed. Even so, the main hall's door remained tightly shut without any movement. What's the background of this bear? Zhou found it increasingly horrifying. Back when he was grinding the dungeon at Mount Laojun, he hadn't done much damage. All he did was walk around casually before he was killed. Now that the giant bear was about to demolish the building, there was no movement from the other party. It was abnormal no matter how he looked at it. The giant bear seemed very angry as it rushed to the main hall's door. It extended its paw and smashed it a few more times as it roared angrily. Zhou's forehead broke out in sweat. Smashing Grand Supreme Elder's place was akin to hanging oneself. It had a death wish. If all the immortals in the world were to be ranked, even if this person wasn't ranked first, Zhou couldn't think of anyone who could be ranked above him. Thankfully, the main hall's door was much sturdier than the mountain gate. The giant bear slapped it a few times, but the door didn't suffer any damage. It only produced loud banging sounds. As though it knew that it couldn't smash open the door, the giant bear planted its front paws on the ground and circled the door a few times before heading to the left of the hall. On the left side of the hall was a stone plate. On the stone plate was a stone calabash. The giant bear came in front of the stone plate and circled it twice. Just as Zhou imagined that it was going to smack the stone calabash and stone plate again, the giant bear suddenly extended its claws and pulled Zhou and Little Bear down, placing them in front of the stone plate. Little Bear turned around unwillingly and climbed onto the giant bear's body. The giant bear extended its claws and carried it to the stone plate. It even pushed Little Bear and Zhou, as though it wanted them to do something to the stone plate. What's the meaning of this? Could it be that it thinks it can't smash things alone and wants us to practice smashing things with it? Zhou thought to himself. Chapter 1483. Seeing that Zhou and the little bear didn't move, the bear's temper flared. It pushed Zhou and the little bear to the side and stood in front of the stone plate. It formed a hug with its claws and moved up and down a few times in the air. Then, it turned its head and roared at Zhou and the little bear. What's the meaning of this? Are you teaching us how to cause destruction? Are you getting us to smash this calabash and stone plate? Zhou looked at the bear's actions. It seemed to be telling them to pick up the calabash and stone plate and smash them to the ground. While Zhou was still thinking, the giant bear roared at the two of them again and pushed them with its claws, almost pushing them onto the stone platform. Zhou thought to himself, that little bear is silly. It probably can't understand the bear's intentions. Now is the time for me to perform. Roar. With this in mind, Zhou mimicked the bear and let out a roar. He even extended his claws and hammered his chest. However, on second thought, it was like a gorilla's actions. The bear probably didn't have such a move. He hurriedly lowered his hand and stole a glance at the bear. Thankfully, the bear didn't mind. Only then did Zhou relax. He extended his claws and hugged the calabash, hoping to pick it up and smash it. After all, with the bear around, even if the Elder Supreme Station wanted to settle scores, it should be on the bear. Zhou believed that he was quite good at causing destruction. He prepared to pick up the stone calabash and smash it heavily to the ground. However, the stone calabash remained motionless despite his strength. It didn't seem to have any intention of getting up. The stone calabash was about 2 feet tall, so it didn't look heavy. In order to disguise himself as the little bear, Zhou used very little strength. Seeing that he couldn't move it, he secretly used more strength. However, the calabash remained motionless, as though it was welded to the stone plate below. Zhou increased his strength and tried a few times, but the outcome was the same every time. The calabash didn't even have any intention of moving. What's up with this stone calabash? Could it be that this thing is some kind of treasure? But if it's really a treasure, why would it be casually placed outside? It should be stored in the temple. Zhou sized up the stone calabash and was momentarily confused about its origins. Now, Zhou was somewhat regretful that he hadn't carefully understood the Grand Supreme Elder platform. Zhou never expected such a situation. Originally, the Grand Supreme platform wasn't much of a threat. He had come mainly to deal with the giant bear, but it ended up like this. By the side, Little Bear seemed to be interested by Zhou's actions. It moved its fat body and squeezed over, pushing Zhou to the side. It used its 4 paws to hug the stone calabash. Even I can't carry him, so it would be a wonder if you can, Zhou thought. However, now that the baby bear had taken the initiative to jump out, it had helped him out of his predicament. Zhou was rather grateful to it. While the little bear was hugging the calabash, Zhou sized up the calabash. He saw that the calabash was engraved with cloud patterns and dragon patterns. The dragon shuttled through the clouds, and it was difficult to see its tail. It exuded a refreshing and elegant aura. Little Bear was a silly fellow. It hugged the stone gourd and had no intention of picking it up. It even wanted to bite it, as if it wanted to know if it could be eaten. After chewing twice, it didn't budge. It even used its front paws to gesture at the calabash, as if it wanted to know if it could swallow the calabash. If you can eat this thing, I'll respect you as a man. Just as Zhou was thinking, he suddenly saw the calabash glow brightly. Rays of golden light shone from the cloud patterns. The originally solid stone gourd now looked as if there was something inside. It was naturally impossible for the stone calabash to have a hole, but now the top of the calabash was shimmering with golden light. Then, a golden object spewed out from the calabash's mouth. Zhou only saw that the thing that spewed out was a pill that suffused golden light. Little Bear had already opened its mouth and swallowed the pill. After swallowing it, Little Bear smacked its lips as though it hadn't had its fill. After eating one, Little Bear wasn't satisfied. It hugged the calabash and began chewing on it. It was unknown how it did it, but soon another pill was spat out. Little Bear opened its mouth and swallowed it. Zhou didn't even see what the pill looked like, but it was shimmering with golden light. Perhaps it was because it had eaten the pill. Zhou saw a faint golden luster appear on Little Bear's fur. Furthermore, there was a fragrance. The pill that flew out of the calabash. Could it be Taishang Laojuan's golden core? Zhou's eyes nearly popped out. The little bear gnawed on it, occasionally producing a pill. It made Zhou envious. This was Taishang Laojuan's territory. The pills that jumped out were very likely immortal pills. Even if they weren't the famous 9 Revolutions golden pill, they were definitely not ordinary. Only now did Zhou realize that the giant bear hadn't brought them here to cause destruction, but to eat immortal pills. Zhou really wanted to slap himself twice. He hadn't grasped such a good opportunity. He was clearly the one who hugged the calabash first. Who knew that this would happen? That giant bear was so violent the moment it appeared. I thought it wanted. Zhou was filled with regret, but it was useless. All he could do was wait by the side, hoping that little bear would quickly release the calabash and let him get 2 immortal pills to eat. However, little bear seemed to have a huge appetite. After eating 7 to 8 pills, it still didn't look full. It continued chewing on it. Eat, eat, eat. All you know is eating. Look at your figure. How are you going to find a partner in the future? Which bear chick will fancy you? Be more mindful. Stop eating. Lose some weight, Zhouwen kept mumbling inwardly. He didn't know if the little bear heard his inner voice or if it was really full, but it actually let go of the stone gourd and rolled on the ground. It rolled to the side and lay on its back, panting. Its belly was bulging, and it looked like it had eaten too much. Zhouwen was overjoyed as he hurriedly crawled over and hugged the calabash with his claws. Ignoring the fact that the calabash was covered in little bear's saliva, he opened his mouth to nibble on it. Zhouwen naturally couldn't chew on a stone calabash. He was only mimicking little bear's actions. After a while, the calabash shimmered with golden light as a pill spewed out. Zhouwen was overjoyed when he saw this. He hurriedly opened his mouth and swallowed the pill. When the pill entered his stomach, a strange force immediately spread in his stomach. It was an extremely strange feeling. He didn't know if it was hot or cold. Chapter 1484. A power that seemed to be hot and cold spread through his body. The feeling was indescribable. His body felt as though it was about to ascend to immortality. It became lighter and lighter. Zhouwen felt that if a gentle breeze blew, his body would be carried away by the wind. Of course, that was only Zhouwen's feeling. He naturally wasn't really blown away. Not only was he not blown away, but his body was also getting heavier. The bricks under him were crushed to pieces. Zhouwen lowered his head, wanting to bite the calabash again to get a few more pills to eat, but as he lowered his head, his body gradually turned to stone. Before Zhouwen's mouth touched the calabash, his body was completely petrified, turning into a stone beast statue hugging the stone calabash. Zhouwen's body couldn't move, but he was still conscious. He clearly felt that his body was as light as a feather, and he didn't even react to the petrification process. Holy sh*t, what's going on? Zhouwen was horrified. He clearly felt that his body was as light as a feather, as though a gust of wind could blow him away, but he had turned into a rock, unable to move. What was even more terrifying was that he couldn't use the various essence energy arts in his body, nor could he circulate his essence energy. It was as though he had really become a rock. Could it be that the giant bear already knew that this would happen? That's why it deliberately brought us here to eat pills. If we are really its cubs, we won't turn into stone and use this to distinguish who is its child? Zhouwen had mixed feelings. When the giant bear saw that Zhouwen had turned into a stone statue, it carried the cub on its back before turning to walk out the door. As it walked down the stone steps, it seemed to verify Zhouwen's thoughts. Instead, the little bear would turn its head to look at Zhouwen from time to time. It even called out twice, as though it wanted him to follow. Zhouwen couldn't even move, so how could he keep up? All he could do was watch helplessly as they left the Grand Supreme Elder platform and disappeared from his range of perception. Zhouwen had no choice but to calm down and attempt to use all sorts of powers to escape the present situation. However, he couldn't use his primordial energy art, nor could he summon his companion beast. He couldn't even move his body, so he was out of options. Am I going to become a stone statue and be alone here for 1,000 years? Zhouwen was depressed, but he didn't give up. He only hoped that there would be some good changes. Time ticked by, but Zhouwen failed to recover from his stone statue state. Why is Little Bear fine after eating it, but I turn into stone after eating it? That little bear doesn't seem to be of the stone element. In terms of immunity, I have Truth Listener and the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder, so I shouldn't be weak. What kind of power is the golden core? Zhouwen kept thinking, hoping to find the crux of the problem. But even when night fell and the moon hung high in the sky, he still didn't understand what kind of power Jindan was. The cold moonlight shone on the Laojun platform, as if it had covered the originally mysterious Laojun platform with another veil. Zhouwen's hearing was still present, but it was limited to the vicinity of the Grand Supreme Elder platform. Furthermore, it was only normal hearing, not truth listener's ability. His eyes could also see, but what he could see was only what was in front of him. Teacher Yu is still waiting for me to return. I have to think of a way to escape as soon as possible. As Zhou was thinking, he suddenly heard something strange. It sounded like someone was speaking, but he couldn't hear it clearly. It was like a whisper in his half-asleep state. He seemed to be able to hear it, but he couldn't tell what it was saying. Zhou didn't sleep, so he naturally wasn't half asleep. He listened carefully and could clearly hear the voice. It wasn't so soft that it couldn't be heard, but he couldn't hear what it was saying. Zhou couldn't even be sure if the voice was produced by a human. Unfortunately, his body couldn't move, and the direction of the voice wasn't within his line of sight. After listening for a while, Zhou could only tell that the voice came from the main hall. With that giant bear around, the average person wouldn't dare come to the Laojun platform. Even if they dared to come, I wouldn't be unable to hear anything when they ascended the Laojun platform. Could it be that the voice came from the main hall? With this thought, Zhou felt a glimmer of hope. He didn't know what was inside the main hall, but it was highly likely that Taishang Laojun was consecrated. If the voice really came from the main hall, there might be something special about it. However, no matter how Zhou listened, he couldn't tell what the voice was saying. After a while, the voice gradually vanished. Early in the morning, Zhou saw a purple light scatter on the ground in front of him. It was indescribably magical and beautiful. The purple light came from the east. Zhou was on the west side of the main hall, so he couldn't see what the purple light was emitting. After a while, the angle of the purple light changed. A purple light shot in and shone on him. No, it should be said that it shone on the stone calabash. Zhou was surprised to discover that the stone calabash automatically suffused a golden light as it sucked the purple gas into it. Zhou hugged the calabash as his body was illuminated by the purple light. He felt his body warm as his mind, which had turned a little chaotic after a night of thought, immediately felt refreshed as though he had just woken up. The purple light didn't illuminate him for long. After a while, the angle of the purple light changed, preventing it from illuminating him. The stone calabash returned to its original state, and Zhou wasn't illuminated by the purple light again. For 2 to 3 days, Zhou failed to think of a way to escape. Every night at midnight, he could hear the strange murmurs, and in the morning, he would see the purple light. When the purple light shone on him, he vaguely felt his body show signs of recovery. However, the illumination was too short. Before he could remove his petrification, the purple light had already vanished. Although he knew that time was tight and that Yu Qiubai was definitely having a hard time holding on, he had no good solution. All he could do was be patient and listen to the murmurs every night. In the morning, he tried his best to absorb some of the purple light like a calabash when he bathed in the purple light. However, this wasn't easy. Without using an essence energy art, it was clearly very difficult to actively absorb the purple light. Zhou kept trying, but he failed. Over the past few days, Zhou didn't see the giant bear or the baby bear. Instead, the door that had been destroyed by the giant bear automatically recovered the next day. Occasionally, Zhou could hear some dimensional creatures loitering around the Grand Supreme Elder platform, but none of them dared to ascend it. There weren't even any dimensional creatures that went up the step. At most, they would loiter by the side of the steps for a while before leaving. Chapter 1485. Early in the morning, Zhou was enjoying the moment of purple light when he suddenly heard footsteps coming from beneath the Grand Supreme Elder platform. At first, Zhou thought that he had heard wrongly, but he immediately heard someone speaking. "Old man, are you sure it's here?" A somewhat lazy man's voice sounded. Zhou's expression immediately turned odd when he heard the familiar voice. This was because the voice sounded like eldest senior brother Lu Yun's. It can't be? Why is Lu Yun here? Zhou was extremely puzzled. Although Lu Yun was his eldest senior brother, it was hard to describe their relationship as good or bad. After all, Lu Yun had always wanted to scam Zhou in the past, but every time he met him, he would always suffer. In the beginning, Zhou only retaliated passively, but as time went by, he couldn't help but want to take the initiative to bully his eldest senior brother. The relationship between the two of them couldn't be considered good, but it wasn't entirely bad either. No matter what Lu Yun thought, Zhou had never thought of doing anything to Lu Yun. He had never even treated him as an enemy. This feeling was very strange. He was clearly someone who wanted to scam him the moment they met, but he didn't think of him as an enemy. The place where Grand Supreme Elder ascended should be here. An elderly voice sounded. When Zhou heard this voice, he was taken aback. This was because he was familiar with this voice. It was likely Jing Daoxian's voice. Why is Lu Yun still with Jing Daoxian? Hadn't he suffered enough losses? Could it be that Jing Daoxian used some means on Lu Yun, forcing him to listen to him? Zhou had always been puzzled as to why Lu Yun was with Jing Daoxian. Later on careful thought, Lu Yun had been captured by Jing Daoxian back in the Qin Emperor Mausoleum. It was very likely that he had been coerced by Jing Daoxian back then. That might not be the case. Many places claim to be related to Grand Supreme Elder. You said the same thing the last time you were in my hometown. What happened in the end? Lu Yun mocked. This great immortal is the ancestor of the Dao sect. Everyone wants to be blessed by him, causing the information to be too chaotic. We need to slowly verify it. This Grand Supreme Elder platform is indeed the place where Grand Supreme Elder ascended. As long as no one arrives before us, that thing should still be here, Jing Daoxian said slowly. Let's wait and see. I don't dare to have such high hopes anymore. However, Lu Yun still didn't seem to believe Jing Daoxian's judgment. As he spoke, he was about to walk up the stairs when he was stopped by Jing Daoxian. The 33 Dao steps of the Elder Lord platform symbolize the 33 heavens. Each step is a day. It's not something that can be casually ascended, said Jing Daoxian. There's nothing special about it. Lu Yun sized up the stairs and felt that apart from being taller, there was nothing special about it. The more Zhou heard, the stranger he found it. He had been carried up by the giant bear, so he didn't think much of the steps. However, from Jing Daoxian's tone, even he didn't dare belittle the 33 step. Taoism emphasizes returning to simplicity. The more inconspicuous a place is, the more careful you have to be. Otherwise, without me by your side in the future, you won't be able to survive even if you have 10 lives, Jing Daoxian said solemnly. I've been roaming alone for so many years, but aren't I still living well? Lu Yun said disapprovingly. If you don't believe me, you can give it a try, Jing Daoxian said slowly. I'll give it a try, Lu Yun said as he jumped up the steps. After Lu Yun landed on the steps, Zhou suddenly couldn't hear his voice. However, Lu Yun had clearly landed on the first step, so why did he seem to vanish all of a sudden? He couldn't hear his voice at all. From the looks of it, those steps are just as Jing Daoxian said. They have unbelievable power. It's just that I was carried up by the giant bear. The giant bear directly broke through the restrictions on the steps, so I didn't sense the existence of that power. Just as Zhou was thinking, he suddenly heard a tragic cry. Lu Yun, who had seemingly vanished, fell to the ground outside the steps with a tragic cry. It was as though he had appeared out of thin air. 33 steps. You can't even hold on after just 7 steps. Aren't you a little too weak? Jing Daoxian said mockingly. To be able to reach the 7th step is already a genius. A genius like me is already rare in the world. It's difficult to find one in the mortal world. There aren't many humans like me. Lu Yun got up from the ground and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, as he stubbornly said. Which of your junior brothers isn't stronger than you? Jing Daoxian said slowly. Then I'm giving in to them. On account of us being from the same sect, I don't want to bully the weak, Lu Yun said as he twisted his neck. Luoyang's and Tianzhua, the Dugu family's Dugugu, the Zhang family's Zhang Chuanqiu, and the Xia family's Xia Luchuan shouldn't be inferior to you, right? There's also that punk from the South Seas Feng family. The Ming family's sword-wielding baby isn't much weaker than you, right? A genius like you doesn't seem rare. Jing Daoxian gave examples one by one. Lu Yun was immediately unhappy. How can Feng Chuyan and Ming Xiu be my match? And Tianzhua will at most tie with me. They can barely be considered on the same level. There's nothing to fear about the others. The tie you mentioned, is it like the last time in Luoyang's Dragon Gate Grotto? You were chased by him but failed to catch up? That's right. As long as you don't die, it's a draw, Jing Daoxian said with a smile. How did you know? Lu Yun was alarmed as he glared at Jing Daoxian. I know a lot. Jing Daoxian didn't answer him. He looked at the steps in front of him and said, These 33 steps are the distance between heaven and earth. It's the process of going from mortal to immortal. If you can reach the 33rd step at the epic stage with your own abilities, you can break through the limits of heavenly man and advance to the mythical stage with your body. Unfortunately, there's probably no one in this world who can do it. After a pause, Jing Daoxian said, Follow me. Let's go up first. With that said, Jing Daoxian walked up the step. Lu Yun followed closely behind him. Soon, Zhouwen couldn't hear their voices. It was as though they had vanished from the steps. When Zhouwen heard their voices again, it was already more than an hour later. Jing Daoxian and Lu Yun had already arrived in front of the door. The door that had been smashed by the giant bear had already recovered. It was impossible to tell that it had been smashed. This door can't be opened with brute force. If you forcefully enter, it's very likely that you will be blasted out of Grand Lord platform. Jing Daoxian looked at the door and slowly walked to it. He reached out and knocked on it. When he knocked on the door, there was a strange rhythm. After a few knocks, the door automatically opened. Didn't you say that this door is very difficult to open? Why did it open just by knocking? Lu Yun naturally knew that there was something amiss about this. He said this to get Jing Daoxian to point it out. As Jing Daoxian walked into the yard, he said, This is the door of Heavenly Man. As long as one has broken through the limits of Heavenly Man, they can naturally knock it open. Therefore, I can open it, but you can't. Chapter 1486. What's there to be smug about? Lu Yun mumbled as he followed Jing Daoxian into the yard. When he arrived in the yard, Jing Daoxian saw the metal pillar that had been stabbed into the wall by the giant bear. His expression immediately changed. Someone came here before us. With that said, Jing Daoxian walked to the wall and reached out to caress the exposed parts of the metal pillar. At the same time, he carefully sized it up. It should be teacher, right? From the looks of it, you're one step too late again, Lu Yun said gloatingly. Whose grandson are you? Jing Daoxian glared at him. Who knows if you're lying to me? How do I know that what you said is true? Lu Yun curled his lips and said, If you weren't my only grandson, I would have slapped you to death, Jing Daoxian said coldly. Then, he released his hand that was stroking the metal pillar. He took 2 steps back and said, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. The one who came isn't Wang Mingyuan. Wang Mingyuan wouldn't do such a senseless thing. Zhouwen was already stunned. Eldest senior brother Lu Yun is actually Jing Daoxian's grandson? It's no wonder I always felt that something was amiss. Why is Lu Yun always together with Jing Daoxian? So that's why. After the shock, Zhouwen couldn't help but feel a burning desire for gossip. Lu Yun is Jing Daoxian's grandson. Then who's his grandmother? Didn't they say that Jing Daoxian didn't marry or have children? What senseless thing? Lu Yun asked. This metal pillar's name is Mountain Driving Whip. It should have been something good, but unfortunately, this one is fake. The person who came before us discovered that this metal pillar was fake and flew into a rage. He smashed it into the wall. With Wang Mingyuan's personality, he definitely wouldn't do such a thing, Jing Daoxian said. That's true. If it was teacher, He would have put it back after discovering that it was fake, Lu Yun said. Jing Daoxian smiled strangely. That's possible. However, if I were to guess, I believe he would have taken this fake mountain driving whip away. Why? Lu Yun asked in puzzlement. Because I would have done the same, Jing Daoxian said as he reached out to pull the metal pillar. It was difficult to insert the metal pillar in, but it was equally difficult to pull it out. Jing Daoxian pulled a few times, but the metal pillar seemed to be stuck in the wall. It didn't budge at all. Since it's fake, why waste time pulling it out? Lu Yun asked again. You don't understand. Jing Daoxian summoned a companion beast. Zhouwen could tell that it was a humanoid companion beast. As he didn't have truth listener's augmentation, he couldn't turn the voice he heard into an image. All he could do was make a rough judgment. With the help of the humanoid companion beast, the metal pillar was slowly pulled out. It was unknown what method Jing Daoxian used, but when he stroked the metal pillar with his palm, it vanished. It's about time. If you don't get down to business, I'm afraid you will lose your life here when that bear returns, said Lu Yun. That lucky stone should be on the west side of the main hall. You will naturally see it when you take a look, said Jing Daoxian. Lu Yun walked west and immediately saw the stone plate, the calabash, and Zhouwen. Zhouwen was now in the form of a stone beast, so Lu Yun naturally couldn't recognize him. He was even given a fright as he pointed at Zhouwen and said, Strange. Didn't you say that the lucky stone and the treasure calabash are together? Why is there a stone beast here? Could it be that there's a matching lucky beast? What lucky beast? Jing Daoxian frowned slightly as he walked to Lu Yun's side. He was slightly taken aback when he saw the stone beast that Zhouwen had transformed into. Strange. The lucky stone is a stone roller used by Grand Supreme Elderly Lord to grind medicinal ingredients. The treasure calabash is used to store pills, but I've never heard of any guardian beasts. Even if there is one, it should be a boy guarding the furnace. It shouldn't be such a strange stone beast. As Jing Daoxian sized up Zhouwen, he pondered. Furthermore, this stone beast looks somewhat similar to that bear. Zhouwen thought to himself, Jing Daoxian probably hasn't seen Little Bear before, and Little Bear actually doesn't look much like that giant bear. To be able to tell that, Jing Daoxian's eyes are indeed a little sharp. Who cares? After all, what you want is the lucky stone and the treasure calabash. Just take them away, Lu Yun said as he began moving the stone calabash. However, after moving it twice, the calabash didn't budge at all. Lu Yun had used too much strength, causing the veins on his forehead to bulge. Don't waste your strength. Although the treasure calabash isn't a purplish gold calabash, it's no ordinary item. It's not that easy to take it away. If we could use brute force to take it away, the people who came before us would have long taken it away. How could we even have a chance? Jing Daoxian paused for a moment before saying, From the looks of it, we were right to come. These are all real. Do you have a solution? Lu Yun asked. These two treasures are used to refine pills. If we want to take them away, we naturally have to work on the pills, Jing Daoxian said as he took out something from his pocket. It was a small bottle the size of a palm. Jing Daoxian carefully opened the bottle and poured out a tiny pill before throwing it at the stone calabash. The stone calabash, which usually only reacted in the morning, actually shimmered with a golden light and sucked the tiny pill in. Jing Daoxian threw the small bottle in his hand to Lu Yun. Feed a pill to the calabash every 10 minutes. In a few hours you should be able to move the treasure calabash. Why don't you feed it yourself? Lu Yun seemed to enjoy bickering with Jing Daoxian. Jing Daoxian said indifferently, If that bear returns, I have to think of a way to stop it outside. If the person who came before us hasn't left, we have to be on guard. Didn't you say that there aren't more than 5 creatures on Earth that can fight that bear, and none of them are humans? Then how are you going to stop it? Lu Yun asked in puzzlement. Silly child. Sometimes you have to use your brain. Things that can't be done with brute force might be easily done with some small trick. In short, stay here to feed the treasure calabash. No matter what happens outside, don't come out, Jing Daoxian said as he walked out the door and closed it from the outside. You're always saying self-righteous things. I wonder if they're true or not, Lu Yun mumbled as he waited for the time to come before throwing the pill to the calabash. Strangely enough, every time he threw in a pill and pushed the treasure calabash, he felt it become a little lighter. Old man, are you outside? Lu Yun wasn't a person who could stay idle. After waiting for a while, he felt bored and shouted loudly. However, no one answered him. Lu Yun asked a few times, but seeing that Jing Daoxian didn't respond, he probably stopped shouting because his voice couldn't be transmitted. Lu Yun turned his eyes and looked at Zhou. As though he had thought of something fun, he got up and walked towards him. Holy sh*t, what are you trying to do? Zhou immediately felt that something was amiss, but he couldn't move or make a sound. All he could do was watch helplessly as Lu Yun walked to his side. Chapter 1487. Lu Yun circled Zhou a few times before coming in front of him. He stared at his face carefully and gradually frowned. Strange. It's clearly a stone statue. Why does it feel so cordial and 90% annoying? Lu Yun muttered to himself as he looked at the stone beast. This punk's spiritual perception is so sharp. Zhou was given a fright, afraid that Lu Yun would see through him. He had scammed Lu Yun many times. If Lu Yun knew that he had become a stone statue and couldn't move, who knew how Lu Yun would take revenge on him? The more I look at it, the more I hate it. Lu Yun's eyes darted around as he walked in front of him and unzipped his pants. No way. Zhou was alarmed as he had the urge to turn around and flee. He seemed to have guessed what Lu Yun wanted to do. However, he couldn't escape at all. He couldn't even close his eyes. Sizzle! A stream of clear spring water splashed onto the stone beast's front leg, making Zhou want to kick Lu Yun to death. What was even more terrifying was that Lu Yun was still constantly raising the angle of the spring water launcher, causing the spring water to spray even higher. How is it? Are you ashamed? You've never seen such a majestic treasure, right? An existence as talented as me is 1 in 100 million. To be able to see my treasure is also considered your good fortune. If you have the chance to reincarnate into a human in your next life, remember to look after me. Don't be as annoying as you are now. However, don't even think about having my wealth. To have 1/3 of my wealth is enough for you to enjoy for the rest of your life. As Lu Yun splashed water, he boasted. Why doesn't the heavens send down lightning to strike this fellow to death? Zhou was utterly disgusted. It was one thing for his body to be corrupted, but he still had to endure Lu Yun's psyche attack. Zhou desperately exerted his strength to break free from the petrification, but it was useless. The essence, energy, and strength in his body didn't listen to him at all, as though they had been petrified. Watch my twin dragons emerge from the sea. Spring soars to the 9 heavens. Lu Yun soared higher and higher, almost spraying Zhou shoulder. Die, die, die. Zhou roared inwardly as he struggled with all his might, but it was useless. Bam! At that moment, Zhou suddenly felt his body turn heavy. The feeling of ascension vanished, and at the same time, his body was released from its petrified state. After a burst of white smoke, Zhou returned to his original appearance from his petrified state. The sudden turn of events left Zhou and Lu Yun stunned. The two screams overlapped as Zhou *quickly retreated. As Lu Yun retreated, he pulled at his zipper, but in his panic, the zipper got stuck in his flesh. Holy sh*t! Holy sh*t! Lu Yun's face turned green from the pain. He clutched his wound and jumped around. Zhou quickly took off his shirt and threw it far away. The sleeve of his shirt was wet. Are you a king pervert? You turned into a stone statue and peeked at me. Lu Yun recovered and pointed at Zhou as he cursed. Pooey! You're the freaking pervert. You're a human, not a beast. Instead of going to the bathroom, you came to the Grand Supreme Elder's platform to do such a thing. Aren't you afraid that the Grand Supreme Elder will strike you to death with lightning? Zhou immediately retorted. It's my business where I want to relieve myself. What's wrong? Are you feeling inferior because you see that this young master has a lot of capital? It's fine. It's only right for a senior brother to be older than a junior brother. Besides, you're my junior brother. Lu Yun deliberately emphasized the word junior. Wealth? Are you referring to that bean sprout? Zhou curled his lips. F*CKU. You're just plain jealous. How can your bean sprout? The two of them cursed for a while, but they couldn't think of any words. Their mouths were dry. Zhou leaned against the wall to catch his breath, while Lu Yun took out a pill to feed the treasure calabash. I never expected you to be Jing Daoxian's grandson, eldest senior brother. It's no wonder you were so sure that Jing Daoxian wouldn't harm you the last time, Zhou said with a strange expression as he took a deep breath and looked at Lu Yun. After Lu Yun finished feeding the treasure calabash, his expression turned odd when he heard Zhou words. Looking at the door and seeing that it was tightly shut, Lu Yun lowered his voice and said, Jing Daoxian is very sure that I'm his grandson. He treats me well, but teacher said that I'm not Jing Daoxian's grandson. Zhou was taken aback when he heard that. How can a person like Jing Daoxian not know his own family? However, teacher isn't someone who spouts nonsense. That's why I don't know who to trust. Logically speaking, it's impossible for old master Jing Daoxian to be wrong, but teacher's words have never been wrong. Lu Yun was also very depressed. Haven't you asked your parents? Zhou asked. My parents are long dead. How can I ask? Should I cut my throat and look for them? Lu Yun rolled his eyes at Zhou. Then how can Jing Daoxian be sure that you are his grandson? Zhou frowned. How would I know? After we met him in the Qin Emperor Mausoleum, he said that I was his grandson for no reason, but he didn't say the reason. In the beginning, I thought that he was deliberately taking advantage of me. Later, he gave me quite a lot of benefits and made it seem real, Lu Yun said gloomily. With that said, Lu Yun suddenly came to Zhou side and grabbed his collar. He stared into his eyes and almost stuck to his face. With a heavy expression, he said, Let me ask you a question. You have to answer me honestly. Ask whatever you have to say. Why are you grabbing me? Zhou asked. Lu Yun didn't let go as he continued grabbing him and asked, Why did you suddenly come here and transform into a stone beast? Did teacher get you to come? No, I didn't plan on transforming into a stone beast. That's what happened. Zhou roughly recounted what had happened. After Lu Yun heard that, his expression seemed to ease up a little. However, he still asked worriedly, Teacher really didn't get you to come? It really wasn't, Zhou answered with certainty. Then, he looked at Lu Yun and asked, Are you suspecting that teacher has ulterior motives towards you? Lu Yun released Zhou's collar and said with a strange expression, It's not suspicion, but horror. Don't you think that there's something wrong with teacher? Of course there's something wrong. He has already become the Dragon King of the Dimension, Zhou said. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about us disciples. I'm treated as a grandson by Jing Daoxian. Hui Haifeng is the president, and Little Ya is the president of the Holy Spirit Association. If I'm not wrong, the immortal in the League of Defender is very likely Jiang Yan. Together with you, all the disciples he has taken in don't seem to be simple. He has only taken in a few disciples after so many years, but they all have achievements that ordinary people can't reach. Isn't this probability too low? Apart from our teacher, who else have you seen with such abilities? Lu Yun said with a strange expression. Zhou actually had such a feeling before, but he didn't say it out loud like Lu Yun. Chapter 1488. You suspect that it wasn't a coincidence that teacher took us in as students? Although Zhou was somewhat suspicious, he still felt that it was impossible. Who knows? Anyway, I have a nagging feeling that there's something wrong. Lu Yun paused before saying, Do you still remember the time the old man came to you? Is it the time he made a bet with teacher? Zhou naturally remembered it. Jing Daoxian had used an alias to get him to help him get on the Rubik's Cube ranking. Zhou had even taken his companion beast, but he didn't help him get on the rankings. Jing Daoxian was puzzled as well. He had said from the beginning that it was fine if Zhou didn't help him get on the rankings, but Jing Daoxian really didn't cause trouble for Zhou. He didn't even take back the companion beast he had given Zhou. Yes. Lu Yun nodded and said, Although it was a coincidence that I met the old man, teacher got to know the old man because of me. Then, there was a bet. I keep feeling that it's a little odd. What's going on with that bet? Zhou had never understood why Jing Daoxian would directly tell him the contents of the bet. As long as Zhou knew of the bet, Jing Daoxian would definitely lose. Therefore, Zhou had always felt that their bet wasn't as simple as Jing Daoxian had said. The contents of the bet are actually very simple. Just like what the old man told you, if you help him get on the rankings, he will win. If you don't help him, teacher will win. Is it really that simple? Zhou still found it unbelievable. Lu Yun took a deep breath before continuing. It's simple if you say it's simple, but it's also not simple if you say it's not. The final outcome of the bet is like this, but there are some additional conditions. Teacher can't tell you anything about the bet. Only the old man can come into contact with you. Zhou roughly understood a little, but he still looked at Lu Yun and waited for him to explain. The old man told you everything clearly, but he's Jing Daoxian. Do you dare believe him? Lu Yun asked. No. Zhou naturally didn't dare completely believe Jing Daoxian. In fact, he had indeed suspected it before. That's right. No one would believe the words of the Federation's #1 devil, Jing Daoxian. Therefore, the more he tells you the truth, the more you will suspect him. In addition, teacher is unable to explain it to you. Ordinary people might overthink things and help him ascend the rankings. Lu Yun smiled and said, The old man is betting that you won't believe him. You will have doubts in your heart and think wrongly. Unfortunately, he lost the bet in the end. I didn't expect you to be so determined and not give him a chance at all. Zhou smiled bitterly inwardly. In fact, he wasn't that determined. However, the matter back then was very troublesome, forcing him to keep working. He didn't care about this matter at all. Later, when he recalled this matter, Venus had already exploded. Naturally, the matter was left unsettled. He never expected that he would help Wang Mingyuan defeat Jing Daoxian in such a manner. This was something he never expected. It was purely unintentional. What are their stakes? Zhou asked again. I don't know. Only they know the stakes. I don't know what they are betting, Lu Yun said helplessly. In this world, there weren't many secrets that Lu Yun couldn't eavesdrop on. There weren't many people who could stop him from eavesdropping. However, there happened to be 2 people who could stop him, so Lu Yun really didn't hear anything. Zhou didn't know if Lu Yun was lying, but when he thought of Wang Mingyuan and Jing Daoxian's style of doing things, he felt that the possibility of Lu Yun knowing was slim. Zhou had no choice but to ask, Why did you follow Jing Daoxian to Mount Laojun to get this calabash? Didn't the old man tell you last time that he doesn't have much lifespan left? He has to find a way to extend his lifespan. The simplest and most direct method is, of course, to create an elixir of immortality. This calabash and millstone are legendary treasures used by Elder Lord to refine pills. They have miraculous abilities, and the old man wants to use them to refine pills. Lu Yun didn't hesitate to reveal Jing Daoxian's goal. As the 2 of them were chatting, Zhou suddenly heard a roar coming from beneath the Elder Lord platform. A ferocious beast was running towards the Elder Lord platform. Strange. Zhou used Truth Listener to scan the foot of the mountain and realized that the dimensional creature wasn't a giant bear. It was a shimmering golden monster that looked like a tiger or a lion. It was covered in scales and had horns on its head. From afar, it looked like the mythical Qilin, but upon closer inspection, it didn't look like it. He couldn't tell what kind of creature it was. Could it be that the terrifying creature mentioned by the survivors is this one and not the giant bear? Zhou immediately realized that he had been wrong from the beginning. He instinctively believed that there was only one calamity creature at the Elder Lord platform, but he never expected there to be another one. As the saying went, two tigers can't share a mountain, didn't seem to exist here. The monster roared as it charged up the steps of the Elder Lord platform before disappearing from Zhou Wen's range of perception as though it had turned invisible. Rumble! After a while, Zhou Wen sensed a terrifying force erupting on the seventh step. It caused the entire Elder Lord platform to tremble violently. Boom! Boom! 8th step, 9th step, 10th step, one step after another, a terrifying explosive force was released, causing the Elder Lord platform to constantly shake. I wonder if the old man can withstand it. I have to be faster. Lu Yun continued feeding the gourd. Every time he fed one, he would have to move the gourd. Although he still couldn't move it, he could already push it. It looked like it wouldn't take long before he could move it. The terrifying noises outside continued, but the higher the steps, the slower the explosions. Zhou Wen listened carefully for a while and said in surprise, Jing Daoxian seems to have used the power of the 33 steps to stop that dimensional creature. Although that dimensional creature is very strong, it probably won't be able to rush up anytime soon. Roar! To his surprise, just as Zhou Wen finished speaking, he heard another roar. He saw the giant blue bear charge over and rush up the step. Then, he heard a series of crackling sounds as the stone steps were breached. The giant bear charged up crazily, and Zhou Wen could even see a trail of smoke that resembled a dragon behind the giant bear. Good grandson, how's the feeding of the gourd? I'm afraid I can't hold on for much longer. Jing Daoxian pushed open the door and said as he stood outside the door and looked in. I'll be able to carry it soon. I reckon 2 or 3 more should be enough, Lu Yun answered. Chapter 1489. My dear grandson, I can't hold on for half an hour. I'm afraid my old bones will be gone after such a long time. I'll give you 10 more minutes. No matter what, you have to take it away. With that said, Jing Daoxian closed the door again. Do you think this is buying cabbage? Taking it away just like that? Is this something I can control? Lu Yun was somewhat depressed, but he had no other choice. The Grand Supreme Elder platform kept shaking as the explosions outside approached. He also knew that Jing Daoxian couldn't hold on for long. Gritting his teeth, Lu Yun poured out all the pills in the bottle. There were a total of 8 pills. Previously, Jing Daoxian had asked him to feed one every 10 minutes, but now, he couldn't care less. He fed one every minute. Although he knew that this kind of excessive enthusiasm might not be useful and might even cause his previous efforts to go to waste, he had no other choice now that things had come to this. He could only treat a dead horse as a living one and fight for it first. After all, if he didn't risk it, he definitely wouldn't be able to pick up the treasure gourd in 10 minutes, much less the millstone below. As Lu Yun fed the treasure gourd, Zhou Wen paid attention to the situation outside. The explosions had already reached the 23rd level. Although the speed had slowed down, it was only a little. His estimation was similar to Jing Daoxian's. In 10 minutes at most, the 2 calamity-grade creatures would definitely rush up. Zhou Wen didn't feel any psychological burden. Regardless of whether Jing Daoxian and company succeeded or not, it had nothing to do with him. After all, Zhou Wen didn't dare eat the pills that spewed out of the gourd. As Lu Yun fed, he tested it, but even if he fed more pills, the weight of the treasure gourd still slowly lightened. It didn't change. Zhou even felt that the speed at which the treasure gourd became lighter was even slower. Lu Yun clearly realized this situation as he said gloomily, "From the looks of it, it's impossible to take the treasure gourd back today." Indeed, after Lu Yun fed the remaining 8 pills, he still couldn't lift the treasure gourd. On the steps outside, the terrifying explosion had already reached the 30th level. In a few more levels, the 2 calamity-grade dimensional creatures would rush up. "Eldest senior brother, if you still want to carry it, take your time. I'm leaving." Zhou wanted to find a way to escape the Grand Supreme Elder platform. However, it was useless when he tried teleportation and spatial teleportation. Unless he left through the door, any essence, energy, art, or power was useless. "Junior brother, don't bother yourself. Mount Laojun is the place where Laojun ascended to the immortal world. If you really use your spatial powers and fail to teleport out, that's your good fortune. If you really teleport out, I'm afraid you will reach the immortal world," Lu Yun said as he tried to move the calabash. "Isn't it said that the immortal world is a good place? Isn't it good if we can teleport there?" Zhou said. "Junior brother, Lu said. "Lu Yun? If that place was really so beautiful, would it still need to be brought there by others? They'll probably cry and fight to get in." Lu Yun curled his lips. Zhou didn't comment. He knew that the immortal world was most likely a dimension, but if there was really danger, he couldn't care less. Zhou didn't know how powerful the Qilin-like dimensional creature was, but he had seen the terror of the giant bear with his own eyes. Even if he fought it with all his might and used the immortal culling sword, he probably wouldn't be able to gain the upper hand. "My dear grandson, are you done?" Jing Daoxian pushed the door open again and urged. "There's nothing I can do. I still can't move it," Zhou said helplessly. "Don't try again. Follow me." Jing Daoxian also knew that if the 2-dimensional creatures rushed down, it would be too late. Therefore, he would rather not have the gourd. "Zhou, let's go." Lu Yun looked longingly at the gourd and beckoned Zhou to leave with him. "You guys go first. I have a way to leave." Zhou shook his head and rejected Lu Yun's good intentions. Jing Daoxian definitely wanted to take the opportunity to rush down when the 2-dimensional creatures rushed up and use the stone steps to shake them off. However, Zhou knew the bear's strength too well. This method might not allow him to escape. Furthermore, it was too risky. He might as well think of a way to leave. Furthermore, Zhou had some thoughts about the treasure gourd. It had been fed so many pills that it had become much lighter. Lu Yun couldn't carry it, but it didn't mean that he couldn't. If Lu Yun was still here, he wouldn't be able to snatch it in front of him. However, if Lu Yun gave up and left, he couldn't be blamed. "Junior brother, don't tell me you still have designs on the treasure gourd?" Lu Yun clearly knew Zhou too well. He immediately saw through his thoughts and curled his lips before continuing, "I advise you to leave quickly. Otherwise, you won't be able to use your life when the time comes." "You should worry about yourself first," Zhou said with a smile. "Cut the crap. Hurry up and leave. It will be too late if we delay any longer. We have to rush down the moment the 2 of them rush up." Jing Daoxian shouted again from outside. From his voice, it was obvious that the situation wasn't optimistic. "Little junior brother, good luck to you." Lu Yun knew that he couldn't delay any further. He gritted his teeth and rushed out the door, approaching Jing Daoxian. When Zhou saw him leave, he turned around and teleported to the side of the gourd. He hugged it with both hands, hoping to see if he could lift it up a little. As long as he could lift it up by a millimeter, he could put it into the chaos space and take it away. However, if he couldn't lift it up, it was impossible to put it into the chaos space. When Zhou hugged the gourd with both hands and exerted strength, he nearly fell to the ground. The stone gourd was easily picked up by him. It felt as light as a bubble without any effort. Strange, why did it become so light? It's like a bubble? Could it be that Lu Yun is so unlucky that the pills he fed him only took effect after he left? Zhou guessed. However, Zhouwen quickly rejected this thought. The stone gourd's weight slowly decreased. It was impossible for it to become so light all of a sudden. It's not that Lu Yun's luck is too bad, nor is it a problem with the pills. Could it be because… Zhouwen's heart stirred as he placed the stone gourd into the chaos space, before reaching out to grab the stone wheel below. Legend had it that it was a millstone used by Grand Supreme Elder to grind medicine. It was called the Good Luck Stone by humans. In fact, the millstone might be more precious than the gourd. The treasure gourd was only used to store medicine, but the millstone could automatically grind medicine. The functions of the two were very different. Zhouwen's fingers touched the millstone and he lifted it up with force. However, the millstone was easily lifted by Zhouwen. It was similar to when he had picked up the treasure gourd. What's going on? Zhouwen was somewhat alarmed. He didn't know why he could obtain the treasure gourd and stone millstone so easily. Chapter 1490. Zhouwen clearly remembered that when he was brought up by the giant bear, he had already tried it. He couldn't lift the calabash at all, much less the millstone below. He originally wanted to see if he could pick up the calabash that had been fed many pills, but to his surprise, he could easily pick up the millstone. Is it because he ate that golden elixir? After some thought, Zhouwen realized that there was only one possibility. Otherwise, it was impossible for the millstone and calabash to become lighter out of thin air. The golden core had turned Zhouwen into a stone. After recovering for some baffling reason, he seemed to be able to pick up the millstone and calabash. Zhouwen didn't have time to consider too much because the terrifying explosions outside were already approaching the door. Thankfully, Lu Yun had closed the door when he left. Otherwise, the two terrifying dimensional creatures would have already rushed in. Zhouwen had been paying attention to the situation outside. At the instant the two terror creatures rushed up, Jing Daoxian rushed down with Lu Yun. The timing was just right. The two terrifying creatures rushed to the door, but the two of them rushed down. The giant bear roared and turned to chase after them. When Zhouwen saw this scene, he knew that his previous worries were correct. The giant bear's intelligence wasn't ordinary. Zhouwen had previously been fooled into becoming a stone statue by it. He didn't believe that it would watch them escape. Now, as Zhouwen had expected, the giant bear chased after them. Unfortunately, the golden Qilin-like dimensional creature didn't chase after them. It observed the door of the Grand Elder platform and circled around it a few times. Zhouwen thought to himself, this door is the door of the Grand Elder platform after all. That giant bear is an extremely terrifying existence. It's acceptable that it can smash the door, but it's impossible for a random dimensional creature to smash the door, right? Boom. As Zhouwen was pondering over it, the golden Qilin pounced forward and slammed its sharp claws at the door, causing it to rumble. The commotion was extremely terrifying. Golden light bloomed from the golden Qilin's body. Its golden body was crystalline like glass in the golden light, as though it was augmented by some divine power. It slammed the door again and again. Zhouwen was a little flustered in the beginning, but after a few strikes, he realized that although the golden Qilin's strength was extremely violent and Zhouwen was far from its match, it couldn't crack the door like the giant bear. The golden Qilin slammed the door crazily for a while, but it couldn't damage the door at all. In the end, it had no choice but to stop. Indeed, it's impossible for an existence like the giant bear to appear casually. Zhouwen heaved a sigh of relief. He estimated that the golden Qilin was likely an existence at the Hell stage. Zhouwen was indeed much weaker than it. If it were to charge in, Zhouwen would probably find it difficult to fend it off. All he could do was think of a way to escape. Now that the golden Qilin couldn't enter, Zhouwen had more choices. It was best to wait for it to leave before thinking of a way to leave the Grand Supreme Elder platform. Zhouwen was somewhat worried about whether he could successfully walk down the 33rd step. Previously, it was the giant bear that brought him up. If he wanted to go down now, it would not be so easy. Just as Zhou Wen was pondering over it, he suddenly realized that the golden qilin had another abnormal movement. It walked to the door, but this time, it didn't strike the door. Instead, it raised its front claw and knocked on the door with a flashing golden claw. Oh no! Zhou Wen's expression changed drastically when he heard the rhythm of the golden qilins knocking on the door. The rhythm was identical to Jing Daoxian's knocking. It was clearly the method to open the door of the Grand Supreme Elder platform. Holy sh*t, this fellow actually knows how to use such a method to open the door. How intelligent is it? Zhou Wen was alarmed as the door slowly opened. The extremely ferocious face that resembled a tiger and a lion immediately appeared in Zhou Wen's eyes. He had heard it before, but now that he saw it with his own eyes, it felt somewhat different. The ferocious gaze and domineering aura gave it the nobility of standing at the top of the food chain. That nobility wasn't because of its beauty, but because of its unparalleled strength. Zhou Wen held the immortal culling sword in hand and wore the dragon prisoner armor. At the same time, he circulated the Calamity Grade Ancient Sovereign Sutra. Although the Calamity domain of the Ancient Sovereign Sutra couldn't kill and could only heal living beings, the Calamity Grade Ancient Sovereign Sutra could greatly improve Zhou Wen's various qualities, making him comparable to a true Calamity Grade creature. Zhou Wen had no intention of retreating as he stared at the golden qilin with his sword. The Grand Supreme Elder platform was only so big, so there was definitely nowhere to hide. All he could do was lure the golden qilin in. It would be best if he could kill it. If he couldn't, he would find an opportunity to rush down the Grand Supreme Elder platform. After the golden qilin opened the door, it didn't immediately attack Zhou Wen. Instead, it slowly walked to the door and stared at him. Zhou Wen imagined that it was about to launch an attack, but to his surprise, the fellow swung its tail and closed the door. Zhou Wen's heart sank. This action once again proved that this fellow's intelligence was extremely high. Furthermore, it was extremely sinister and vicious. With the door closed, this was an independent space. Even if Zhou Wen teleported, he wouldn't be able to leave unless he opened the door first. Although Zhou Wen had already memorized Jing Daoxian's method of opening the door, it took time to open it. In front of such a terrifying creature, it was definitely not an easy task to open the door. After the golden qilin closed the door, it didn't immediately attack Zhou Wen. Its body trembled as golden light bloomed from its body. The golden light instantly enveloped the entire yard. Zhou Wen gathered his strength to resist the golden light, but when the golden light touched Zhou Wen's minor heavenly cycle killing array, it didn't cause any damage. However, the golden light was distorted by the minor heavenly cycle killing array, forming a golden halo around Zhou Wen. It didn't directly shine on him. Zhou Wen knew that the golden light was likely the golden qilin's domain, but he didn't know what use it had. It didn't look like an offensive domain. The more it was such a domain, the more Zhou Wen didn't dare be careless. An offensive domain could tell at a glance what kind of power the domain had, but he didn't know what use it had. He might stumble somewhere. The heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder and truth listener were already in place to prevent him from being affected by some unknown power. The golden qilin walked over step by step amidst the golden light. Its eyes seemed to condense into something corporeal, ferocious and domineering. If it were a person with a weaker mental fortitude, they would probably be in a weak position. Under such circumstances, the golden qilin still didn't choose to pounce forward. Instead, it approached step by step, forcing Zhou Wen into a corner, preventing him from escaping. This fellow is really sinister and terrifying. This was the first time Zhou Wen had encountered such a dimensional creature. He knew that he couldn't retreat, or the situation would only worsen. With a thought, Zhou Wen suddenly exerted strength in his hand and pulled out the immortal culling sword. Chapter 1491. Not even the golden qilin could ignore the terrifying sword qi that erupted from the immortal culling sword. The golden Qilin's sharp claws brought with them a dazzling golden light as they met the immortal vanquishing sword. They were so fast that Zhou Wen's vision was filled with afterimages. He couldn't tell the true trajectory of the sharp claws. Dang! The kill immortal sword collided with the claw light. The immortal slaying sword Qi was torn apart by the claw light, but when the claw light touched the blade of the kill immortal sword, it was cut off. Even the golden Qilin's blade-like nails were sliced off by the blade of the immortal culling sword. Zhou Wen immediately understood that his strength was much weaker than the golden Qilin's. The reason why he could slice through the claw beams and nails was because of the sharpness of the immortal culling sword. With the immortal culling sword in hand, Zhou Wen unleashed the heart-defying sword technique. Coupled with the abilities of the disqualified, he slashed at the golden Qilin again and again, aiming for its vital points. The golden Qilin seemed to have already realized the sharpness of the immortal culling sword. It didn't clash head-on with the immortal culling sword. Its body moved like a phantom as it constantly circled Zhou Wen, causing his attacks to miss. Even though Zhou Wen used teleportation, he couldn't keep up with the golden Qilin's speed. What puzzled Zhou Wen was that the golden Qilin didn't attack with all its might. It seemed to be waiting for something. What is it waiting for? Zhou Wen was puzzled, but he knew that he couldn't waste any more time. He had to finish off the golden Qilin as soon as possible or escape the Grand Supreme Elder platform. The immortal culling sword slashed out golden beams of light as it cleaved at the golden Qilin. At the instant the golden Qilin dodged, Zhou Wen, who had already calculated the position, had an ancient mirror appear in his hand. The seven-colored beam of light shot out from the ancient mirror and landed on the spot where the golden Qilin was moving. On the left was the numinous treasure hall, and on the right was the wall. Although the golden Qilin was very fast, Zhou Wen had predicted its position. It could either withstand the soul annihilation divine light of the soul-revealing mirror or forcefully resist the immortal culling sword. In its shock, the golden Qilin twisted its body and forcefully dodged the soul-annihilating divine light. However, the culling immortal sword was already above its head. At the instant the immortal culling sword slashed down, Zhou Wen felt a strong sense of unease. Dang! The golden Qilin raised its head and the golden horn on its head collided with the kill immortal sword, forcibly shaking the kill immortal sword away. The immortal culling sword failed to slice off its golden horn. Instead, it was Zhou Wen who involuntarily retreated due to the powerful impact. The immortal culling sword nearly flew out of his hand. The golden Qilin's eyes were ferocious as a golden beam shot out from its eyes and struck Zhou Wen's chest. Zhou Wen was extremely close to it. Furthermore, his body had been shaken by the immense force. He had already lost his center of gravity, making it difficult for him to control his body's rapid movements. How treacherous! Zhou Wen cursed inwardly. The golden Qilin clearly had long-range attacks, but it pretended to be a creature with a powerful body to fight Zhou Wen. It could clearly block the immortal culling sword, but it pretended to be unable to fight it head-on. This was the first time Zhou Wen had encountered such a powerful dimensional creature that was so wretched and sinister. Thankfully, Zhou Wen had already realized that something was amiss. When the immortal culling sword slashed down, he used space-time theft and teleportation. Teleportation was only effective because of the space-time theft. It teleported Zhou Wen to the side of the God of Wealth Temple. The golden Qilin's golden beam immediately missed and struck the wall of the Spirit Treasure Temple. Golden light exploded on the walls of the Spirit Treasure Temple, producing a shockwave that sent Zhou Wen retreating. If he were to be struck head-on, the consequences would be obvious. Seeing that its attack had failed, the golden Qilin no longer hid. It unleashed its berserk speed as the golden beam in its eyes constantly swept at Zhou Wen. Through the combination of his movement technique and teleportation, Zhou Wen dodged the golden beam in its eyes while finding an opportunity to approach it. He wanted to use the immortal culling sword to kill it. However, the golden horn on its head was abnormally hard. After blocking several strikes from the immortal culling sword, there were only some shallow marks on the golden horn. It was probably not easy to slice it off. The man and beast fought crazily on the Elder Lord platform. The soul-revealing mirror would shoot out soul annihilation divine light from time to time, but it was difficult to hit the golden Qilin. Before long, Zhou felt something amiss again. He didn't know what the golden Qilin's domain was for. In battle, he didn't realize that the golden glow had any effect on him. However, with the passage of time, Zhou finally discovered the use of the golden glow. Furthermore, he realized that he was in danger. Wherever the golden glow shone, Zhou could clearly sense that the glow was getting thicker and thicker as it gradually condensed into something corporeal. Moving in the golden glow felt like moving in water. The resistance became extremely great, and the resistance increased. Zhou suspected that he might be trapped in the golden glow to a certain extent, unable to move. Damn it! Zhou knew that he was in deep trouble. This domain power was similar to the power of control or confinement, but this power didn't directly affect him. Instead, it filled the surrounding space. Therefore, evil nullification and the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder were useless. What should I do? Zhou could already feel the pressure the golden light brought him. Even if he used the immortal culling sword to slash at the golden light, it was like using a blade to slice through water. He couldn't truly slice through it. After the immortal culling sword slashed, the golden light returned to normal. Zhou found it harder and harder to move. Finally, Zhou failed to dodge in time. The golden beam shot out from the golden Qilin's eyes and struck his chest. Bam! At the instant Zhou's chest was struck, the soul reflection mirror appeared. When the golden beam hit the mirror, it was reflected and landed on the golden Qilin itself. The golden light sliced through its golden scales, causing the golden Qilin to roar in pain. Blood flowed out of its wound. Immortal slaying. Zhou knew that this was his last chance. It was very difficult for the same move to be effective against the golden Qilin. It was a problem if he could escape alive after this strike. The golden Qilin raised its head in pain and roared. Its neck was completely exposed in front of Zhou as the immortal culling sword instantly slashed at its neck. Just as it was about to strike its neck, the golden Qilin suddenly lowered its head and bit the immortal culling sword's blade. At the same time, it lowered its head and used its golden horn to slam into Zhou's body. Ding! The ring on Zhou's other hand popped out and transformed into a bamboo blade. Zhou drew it and stabbed, meeting the golden Qilin's eye that was slamming down. Blood flowed as the bamboo blade pierced through the eye. The golden Qilin shook its head crazily, sending Zhou flying with the blade. Bam! Zhou's body slammed into the wall of the main hall. The dragon-imprisoned armor on his body caved in, but the wall remained intact. Roar! The golden Qilin's eye bled as it stared at Zhou and roared angrily. With its roar, the surrounding golden light almost instantly froze like golden jelly, trapping Zhou within. Chapter 1492. Zhou felt as though his body had sunk into solidified concrete. He couldn't move at all. The golden Qilin walked over step by step in the golden light. Its eye that had been pierced by Zhou was still bleeding. It opened its mouth and bared its teeth, looking ferocious as though it wanted to skin Zhou alive. It's over. Zhou wanted to teleport, but the entire Grand Supreme Elder platform was filled with frozen light. There was no space for him to teleport. All he could do was watch helplessly as the golden Qilin gradually approached. Even the soul reflection mirror was frozen in midair. It could only release divine light in one direction, but it was useless. Ding! Just as Zhou was in despair, he suddenly heard a strange sound from his pocket. Zhou was first taken aback before he realized that this was the sound produced by the mysterious phone, but why was the mysterious phone producing such a strange sound? Zhou didn't know what had happened. However, Zhou knew what had happened next. This was because the two golden WYRMs had returned to him. Before he could think further, the golden Qilin had already opened its mouth and bit down at Zhou. If it had bitten down, Zhouwen's head would probably have to bid farewell to his body. Without any hesitation, Zhouwen summoned the two golden WRMs and transformed them into scissors. At the instant the golden Qilin bit down, the two golden WYRM scissors pierced through the frozen golden light and rushed into the golden Qilin's mouth before charging down with indomitable force. Zhouwen saw the golden Qilin spew out blood as golden blood splattered all over his face and body. Zhouwen could sense that the pair of golden WYRM scissors were crazily grinding in the golden Qilin's abdomen, turning its organs into a mess. Haha, the heavens are really helping me. The golden WYRM came out at this moment. Zhouwen knew that he was really lucky. If the golden WYRM had come out any later, Zhouwen would have been dead. If it had come out earlier, he might not have had the chance to rush into the golden Qilin's stomach. Although the golden WYRM was at the calamity grade and was sharp enough, they were only at the mortal stage. If they hadn't coincidentally rushed into the golden Qilin's stomach, they might not have been able to severely injure it. The pair of golden WYRM scissors frantically twisted the golden Qilin's stomach as it rolled on the ground with a tragic cry. Blood spewed out of its mouth like a fountain. The golden Qilin struggled a few times to pounce at Zhouwen, but due to the excruciating pain, it collapsed again. Kill it! Kill it! Zhouwen was still trapped in the frozen golden light, unable to move. All he could do was cheer for the two golden WRMs inwardly. Seeing that the golden Qilin was about to die, Zhouwen suddenly felt a sense of danger. In the next second, the golden Qilin's entire body shone with golden light, and its body turned into a golden crystal. One could clearly see the pair of golden Jiao scissors intertwining inside. But that wasn't the main point. The main point was that the golden Qilin's sinister expression was filled with determination, and there was a strange energy surging within its translucent golden body, as if it could explode at any moment. It's going to self-destruct. Zhouwen was alarmed. He wanted to escape, but it was too late. The solidified golden light also blossomed with the golden Qilin, releasing an extremely terrifying energy. It was about to self-destruct along with the golden Qilin. However, the terrifying energy fluctuations made Zhouwen know that even the absolute defense dragon-imprisoned armor probably couldn't withstand the might of the self-destruction. The might produced by the self-destruction of a hell-level lifeform far exceeded the limits of what Zhouwen could withstand. Without any hesitation, Zhouwen wanted to summon the Chaos Egg. Whoosh! A huge palm descended from the sky, instantly shattering the solidified golden light. It shattered like glass and scattered to the ground. Zhouwen's body fell as well. He watched helplessly as the huge palm slapped down at the golden Qilin that was about to self-destruct. With a thought, the golden Jiao instantly returned to Zhouwen's body before he heard a slap. The golden Qilin, which had condensed terrifying power, was slapped to the ground. Its body was pressed down by the huge palm as though it had been flattened. Zhouwen heard firecrackers from under the palm. After a moment there was no more movement. Zhouwen looked in the direction of the furry palm and saw the giant bear's head extend in from outside the wall. Its two front claws were already inside the wall, and the back half of its body was still outside. As for the tiny bear, it was currently lying on the giant bear's shoulder. The giant bear raised its hand and slapped the golden Qilin's claws. The floor tiles beneath its claws shattered as though something had exploded. As for the golden Qilin's body, it had already vanished, leaving only a golden horn in the shattered tiles. Zhouwen was alarmed. The golden Qilin was a terrifying existence. It was very likely a hell-level existence, but the power of its self-destruction had been suppressed by a single claw of the giant bear. It was unimaginable what kind of power it was. Zhouwen couldn't even defeat the golden Qilin, so now that he was being targeted by the giant bear, he naturally didn't feel any joy from escaping death. Boom! the giant bear climbed over the wall and walked in. Only then did Zhou realize that the giant bear didn't need to enter through the door. It could directly climb over the wall. Climbing over the wall wasn't as simple as flipping it over. If it was really a wall, no matter how tall it was, Zhou could still fly over it. However, the yard of the Grand Supreme Elder platform was an independent space. It was also protected by the Grand Supreme Elder platform's rules. To be able to forcefully climb in, not only did one need to have the ability to tear through space, but they also needed to have the ability to clash with the Grand Supreme Elder platform's rules. Zhou was temporarily unable to estimate how terrifying the power required was. Zhou watched the giant bear climb into the yard. Although he knew it was useless, he subconsciously retreated. Countless thoughts flashed through his mind, but he couldn't figure out how to protect his life under the giant bear's claws. After the giant bear entered the yard, its body became much smaller. It wasn't as exaggerated as before. The little bear got off its back and ran towards Zhou. Zhou was delighted instead of being alarmed. Many thoughts flashed through his mind. Can I use this little bear as a hostage? But does this bear know what a hostage is? Will it be threatened? While Zhou was still hesitating, the little bear had already run to his side. It circled around him a few times as though it was sniffing his scent with its nose. After circling a few times, the little bear seemed to confirm something. It pounced on Zhou and extended its tongue to lick his face. It looked very intimate. This fellow still recognizes me? Zhou's expression flickered, unsure if it was a blessing or a curse. Chapter 1493. The little bear pounced on Zhou, but he didn't dare move. He spread his arms, not daring to touch the little bear. Zhou was afraid that if he reached out to touch the little bear, the giant bear might misunderstand that he wanted to hurt it. That would definitely result in a tragic outcome. However, the little bear didn't seem to know anything as it rubbed against Zhou, as though it wanted to play with him. Zhou looked at the giant bear, unsure if he should move. The giant bear moved its claws and slapped the horn on the ground to Zhou's side. What's the meaning of this? Is it for me? Zhou was slightly taken aback. He felt that it was the case, but he couldn't believe it. The giant bear definitely knew that he had transformed into a little bear. It was already kind of him not to smack him to death. It even gave him something left behind by the golden qilin. No matter how he thought about it, it didn't seem possible. The giant bear glanced at him before standing up. Zhou jumped in fright and had the urge to turn around and escape. However, he couldn't escape from the Grand Supreme Elder platform. After the giant bear stood up, it moved its gaze away from Zhou and looked up at the sky as though it was looking at the cosmos. However, it was daytime and there was a huge sun. How could he see any stars? However, the giant bear kept looking up. Zhou couldn't help but look up as well. After taking a look, he immediately widened his mouth in shock. In the sky where the blazing sun was high up in the sky, stars appeared one after another. The light from the stars was as clear as day, and it was getting brighter and brighter. What's going on? Zhou looked at the stars in the sky before looking at the giant bear. Without a doubt, the stars that appeared in the day were definitely related to the giant bear. This was because Zhou had already seen starlight land on its body. In broad daylight, starlight shone on the giant bear like searchlights. Even an idiot knew that this matter was definitely related to the giant bear. In fact, it wasn't just Zhou. Many people in the Federation had seen the phenomenon of stars appearing in broad daylight, but they didn't know the reason. The various factions were paying attention to this strange phenomenon, and the media was also reporting this phenomenon. Although Zhou didn't know what was happening outside, he could imagine that the Federation was definitely in chaos with such a strange phenomenon appearing. However, Zhou didn't know that this was only the beginning. The outside world was more chaotic than he imagined, because the Rubik's cubes scattered all over the world lit up at the same time. After the last battle of Venus, The magic cube hadn't moved at all. Now that it had reopened, the images on the magic cube were impressively those stars that had appeared during the day. The Rubik's Cube has opened again. I wonder if it's a blessing or a curse. Zhang Chuanxiu sighed softly. To him, too many things had happened recently. In leading the Zhang family forward in such a complicated situation, Zhang Chuanxiu had always been treading on thin ice. He was afraid that if he wasn't careful, the Zhang family would slide into a bottomless abyss. Is it starting again? Which star's companion beast will appear this time? Xia Luchuan was eager to give it a try. Ever since Xia Zhihuang's death, the Xia family had been developing in a low profile and constantly strengthening itself. Now they had recovered a lot of their strength, but if they wanted to return to the era when the Xia family was at its most recovered, they still needed more resources and hard work. And the Battle of the Magic Cube was undoubtedly the fastest way to obtain top resources. Strange, why are there so many stars shining? Which star's companion beast has appeared? Dugugu muttered to himself as he looked at the scene. In fact, it wasn't just Dugugu. Everyone who was watching the Rubik's Cube found it odd. This was because only Venus had appeared in the Rubik's Cube during the last Battle of Venus. Now, there were more than 10 stars that had appeared during the day. The scenes appeared on the Rubik's Cube as they guessed what was going on. Even the holy deity in the Holy Land was looking at the stars in the sky with a frown. Zhouwen watched as the starlight on the giant bear's body intensified, as though it was about to ascend with the starlight. He couldn't help but feel surprised. What's going on? Could it be that the giant bear isn't a dimensional creature on Earth but from the universe? That wasn't right either. Earth had its own laws of self-protection. Not to mention the creatures in the universe, even the creatures on Earth would be greatly restricted. For example, Tsukuyomi has no choice but to leave Earth. This giant bear's level should be higher than Tsukuyomi's. If it isn't an Earth creature, how can it not be restricted when it comes to Earth? Many thoughts flashed through Zhouwen's mind, but he still couldn't figure out what was going on. If the giant bear was an Earth creature, why could it stir the stars in the universe? Furthermore, it wasn't just one. So many stars seemed to resonate with it. As Zhouwen pondered, Little Bear seemed to realize something and pounced forward to throw itself into the giant bear's embrace. However, the starlight isolated it outside like an invisible barrier, preventing it from approaching the giant bear. The giant bear looked at Little Bear with a gentle look in its eyes. There were also some emotions that Zhouwen couldn't understand. Woo! Woo! Little Bear cried out as it tried to rush into the starlight. Its claws scratched at the starlight, but it couldn't rush in. The giant bear didn't stop Little Bear, nor did it do anything. All it did was look at it lovingly. As the starlight intensified, the giant bear's body was stirred by the starlight and gradually floated up. The giant bear is going to be forced to leave Earth? Zhouwen was pleasantly surprised. If the giant bear left just like that, he would be completely safe. However, on second thought, he felt that something was amiss. If the giant bear left Earth, why didn't it take Little Bear with it? With its powerful strength, it shouldn't be difficult for it to take Little Bear with it. Now that Little Bear was isolated from the starlight, the giant bear wasn't surprised at all. Clearly, it had expected it. The giant bear's body rose higher and higher as Little Bear jumped and scratched anxiously. It wanted to approach the giant bear, but it was blocked by the starlight, unable to approach at all. The giant bear had already risen above the Grand Supreme Elder platform. It suddenly retracted its gaze and looked at Zhouwen. Zhouwen's heart subconsciously raced when he was stared at. Although the gaze wasn't fierce, it made Zhouwen feel an inexplicable pressure. Woo! Woo! Little Bear jumped up and slammed into the starlight, but it was stopped by the Grand Supreme Elder platform's strength. After falling, it fell to the ground. The giant bear's body had already exceeded the Grand Supreme Elder platform's range. The speed at which it rose into the sky increased. Before Zhouwen could figure out what the giant bear was looking at him with, the giant bear's body had already risen into the sky like a meteor. In the blink of an eye, it shot into the universe and vanished. Those shining stars also gradually dimmed as the giant bear ascended into the universe. The spectacle of the stars in the daytime also disappeared. Only the little bear was still whimpering at the sky. Although the phenomenon of stars in daytime vanished, the Rubik's Cube didn't stop. There were still images changing. Chapter 1494. Finally, the Rubik's Cube's scene froze on a strange planet. The planet emitted a strange glow. It was orange-red in color, and there seemed to be a dazzling colorful light swirling within it. As the light was too intense, it was impossible to see what was inside. The Rubik's Cube's scene remained fixed there without any changes, nor did it close. There was a flurry of discussion. Some factions even began to study the planet that appeared on the Rubik's Cube. Zhouwen looked up into the sky and couldn't see the giant bear at all. There was only a blue sky in broad daylight. The little bear's eyes were brimming with tears as it constantly whimpered at the sky. Seeing Zhouwen look at it, the little bear pounced over and burrowed its head into Zhouwen's arms, whimpering as it hugged him. "What's going on?" Zhouwen still hadn't snapped out of his daze. From the looks of it, the giant bear wanted him to adopt the little bear. However, Zhouwen didn't understand why the giant bear thought that he would adopt the little bear and not kill it. After all, the giant bear had already left Earth and couldn't return. Even if he killed the little bear, the giant bear couldn't do anything to him. However, looking at the crying little bear, Zhouwen really couldn't bring himself to do it. Could it be that the giant bear's intelligence has reached such a level that it can tell that I can't bear to kill the little bear? Zhouwen patted the little bear's head, still feeling that something was amiss, but he couldn't figure out what it was. Thankfully, the little bear was easy to coax. After a while, it stopped crying. "I have to leave this place. Do you want to follow me?" Zhouwen asked the little bear. The little bear looked at him in puzzlement. Clearly, with its intelligence, it couldn't understand what Zhouwen was saying. Zhouwen spoke and gestured for quite a while, but he failed to get the little bear to understand him. However, when Zhouwen walked out, the little bear followed him. "This fellow is so stupid. If I leave it here, it probably won't survive. Forget it, I'll bring it back." Zhouwen put away the golden horn and left the Grand Supreme platform with the little bear. When he walked into the 33rd step, Zhouwen immediately felt that it was different from when he came. With a step, the world changed as though he had stepped into a void. He felt his body rapidly plummet, and he had no idea where he would fall. Strangely, the little bear didn't fall into the void with Zhouwen. He didn't even see its shadow. With a thought, Zhouwen circulated the Tao Sutra and engraved the heaven-opening scripture. In the next second, Zhouwen realized that he was still standing on the step. There was no void at all, nor was he falling. Furthermore, the bear was beside him. Zhouwen led little bear down. With the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder, the 33 Tao steps were useless against him. Little bear didn't seem to be restricted by the Tao steps either. It followed beside Zhouwen and kept leaning its head against him. After leaving the Grand Supreme Elder platform, Zhouwen circled Tao Enlightenment Palace. There were quite a number of dimensional creatures here, but none of them attacked humans. Clearly, they were affected by the nomological powers of Tao Enlightenment Palace. They weren't as fearless as the Golden Qilin and the giant bear. The giant bear has left, and the Golden Qilin is dead. This place can be considered as a place to build a human city. However, killing is not allowed in the Grand Supreme Elder platform, and food will be a problem in the future. Furthermore, any creature can enter and exit the Grand Supreme Elder platform at will. If creatures like the giant bear appear again, it will be a huge problem. After some consideration, Zhouwen felt that the Grand Supreme Elder platform could be used as a temporary shelter. However, it didn't seem like a good choice to build a human city and let humans live there for a long time. Furthermore, Zhouwen had a vague feeling that his Tao Sutra might be able to advance to the Calamity grade by relying on the Grand Supreme Elder platform. If the Grand Supreme Elder platform was destroyed, wouldn't it be very dangerous to build a human city here? However, Zhouwen didn't find anything on the Grand Supreme Elder platform that could advance his Tao Sutra to the Calamity grade. All he could do was return to take a look at the situation. The little bear followed Zhouwen closely. It would panic the moment it couldn't see Zhouwen. From the looks of it, the giant bear's departure had left a huge psychological trauma on it. Don't be afraid. You will have many friends soon. Zhouwen stroked the little bear's head and returned to Guide City with it. Guide City was in a pretty good situation. In the few days that Zhouwen was at the Grand Supreme Elder platform, there had been a few large-scale skeleton legions appearing. Yu Qiubai was originally very worried, but to his surprise, when the chick spat out a mouthful of flames, the skeleton army was like withered wood. It spread like wildfire, spreading like wildfire. The skeleton army couldn't withstand a single blow from the chick, leaving Yu Qiubai pleasantly surprised. It was also because of the chick's display of might that the hesitant people quickly gathered at the school. Many people had even signed the agreement, willing to become a part of the new city. Zhouwen, this bird of yours is just too amazing. Now, everyone outside is treating it as a divine bird, saying that it's the legendary mystic bird. Yu Qiubai excitedly recounted the chick's display of might and how much it was revered by people. Zhouwen was at a loss whether to laugh or cry when he heard that. The mystic bird was indeed a divine bird of Shang, but from the word mystic, it should be a black bird. The chick was a phoenix species, and its body was already a pale gold color. It was impossible for it to be a mystic bird. However, the chick was very smug. When Yu Qiubai recounted its heroic deeds, its chin was almost raised to the sky, looking as though it couldn't be looked at. What's this? Only then did Yu Qiubai see the little bear behind Zhouwen. The little bear was actually very timid. It kept hiding behind Zhouwen, occasionally peeking out half its head to peek at Yu Qiubai and the chick. The reason Yu Qiubai asked this was because the little bear really didn't look like a bear. Its size was different from a gigantic bear, closer to a four-legged beast like a lion or tiger. This is a pet I adopted. It has a rather wild personality and isn't as obedient as the chick. Don't approach it, Zhouwen exhorted Yu Qiubai. Yu Qiubai nodded and asked, "How's the situation at Mount Laojun?" "That dimensional creature has been resolved, but I don't think Mount Laojun is suitable for building a human city. Although it's relatively safe there for the time being, we can't kill. This means that we need to obtain food from the outside world. Furthermore, any creature can freely enter and exit Tao Illumination Palace. This is very disadvantageous for us," Zhouwen said. Yu Qiubai sighed and said, "I also know that it's not suitable, but now, so many people are eagerly waiting for us. They need a stable home. With the chick guarding this place, there shouldn't be any problems for the time being. We still have time. Think about it and see if there are any other suitable dimensional zones." Zhouwen still felt that he shouldn't choose Mount Laojun and Tao Illumination Palace for temporary stability. "Let me think about it." Yu Qiubai paused and suddenly said, "By the way, do you know about the reopening of the Rubik's Cube?" "There's a Rubik's Cube here?" Zhouwen was somewhat surprised. Chapter 1495. There were many places where the Rubik's Cube appeared. Most of them were places where a large number of humans gathered. There were also some ancient cities or dimensional zones. It was possible for the Rubik's Cube to appear. Zhouwen wouldn't be surprised if Guide Ancient City had a Rubik's Cube, but Guide City's population was constantly declining. It surprised Zhouwen that the Rubik's Cube would appear outside a dimensional zone. We found it strange in the past. I've also read reports regarding the Rubik's Cube. The Rubik's Cube in other cities appears in the middle of cities where humans gather. However, the Rubik's Cube in our Guide City appeared in the suburbs. There weren't many people there, nor were there any dimensional zones. Now, there are even fewer people there. I wonder why the Rubik's Cube would appear there, Yuchiobai said. Where's the Rubik's Cube? Zhouwen felt that the location where the Rubik's Cube appeared definitely wasn't without reason. Perhaps there was something there that hadn't been discovered. Yuchiobai took out a map and pointed out the location to Zhouwen. The place wasn't far from the ancient city. In the past, it was in the suburbs of Guide City. It was originally a place where crops were planted. Wheat had once been planted on a large scale, but it had long been abandoned. There were weeds everywhere that were about a person's height. There weren't any dimensional zones here either. It looked like a wasteland. In the weeds, a huge Rubik's Cube sat there. From afar, he could see the Rubik's Cube screen lit up. On it was the shimmering orange-red planet. This should be a star, right? Zhouwen looked at it for a while and could roughly confirm that it was a celestial body like the Sun, not a planet like Earth. Stars emitted large amounts of light and heat, making it almost impossible for creatures to survive on them. Just like the Sun, its surface temperature could reach 5,500 degrees Celsius. The temperature inside was unimaginably high. Even calamity-grade creatures might not be able to withstand the high temperatures inside. If the dimensional zone is on that planet, the difficulty of this dimensional zone will probably be much higher than Venus. Zhouwen was roughly certain that it wasn't the Sun. He heaved a sigh of relief. If it wasn't a planet in the solar system, the impact on Earth would likely be much smaller. The scene on the Rubik's Cube didn't move at all. There was nothing much to see. Zhouwen circled the Rubik's Cube and used Truth Listener to scan the nearby area, hoping to figure out what was different about this place. Strange. There really aren't any special essence energy fluctuations here, nor are there any dimensional zones. However, this isn't a place where humans gather. Why would the magic cube land here? Zhouwen plucked some weeds and carefully observed them. Although the weeds here were affected by the environment and had undergone some mutations, they were within the normal range. They hadn't evolved into dimensional creatures. Such a mutation could be found all over the world. There was nothing special about it. There must be a reason why the magic cube appeared here. Unfortunately, the Earth Elemental Beast has already been killed by Sword Immortal Perfection. Otherwise, it might discover something if it ventured deep underground. Zhouwen was somewhat depressed as he summoned Tyrant Behemoth. It was also good at digging. After Tyrant Behemoth came out, it accepted Zhouwen's orders and lowered its head to burrow into the ground. The strange horn on its head spun like a drill bit as it drilled a huge hole in the soil that was connected to the weed. Tyrant Behemoth drilled a few hundred meters underground, but it didn't discover an underground dimensional zone. Just as Zhouwen was feeling disappointed, he saw the tiny bear run to a patch of weeds near the Rubik's Cube. It raised its butt and used its front claws to dig for something. Zhouwen walked over curiously and saw the little bear's front claws quickly dig at the soil. Soon, it dug out a huge hole. What's that? Zhouwen realized that the little bear had really dug out something. He couldn't tell what it was. It looked like an earthen yellow substance with some fine patterns on it. It wasn't gold or jade, nor did it look like a stone. The little bear's actions became very gentle as it used its claws to remove the soil on it, allowing the item to gradually appear. This is a beehive. Zhouwen finally saw what it was. It was a lotus-like beehive with a diameter of more than 50 centimeters. The little bear used its claws to tear open the beehive, and honey flowed out. The little bear licked the honey with its mouth. After sucking quite a bit of it, it gestured for Zhouwen to eat the honey with it. Zhouwen used his finger to dip it in and placed it in his mouth to taste it. It was really sweet honey. It wasn't fake at all. Strange, such a beehive should be on a tree. An earthen wasp's beehive isn't like this. Why is this beehive underground? Zhouwen called Tyrant Behemoth over and got it to continue digging the hole the little bear had dug. Not long after the little bear dug, it made another discovery. However, this time, it wasn't a beehive but some rotten bronze. This was because many of them had rotted. From the remnant parts, it was likely something similar to a cauldron. As Tyrant Behemoth was too strong, it damaged many of the bronze items while digging, making it even more difficult for Zhou to identify them. Therefore, Zhou stopped getting it to dig and used his hands to do so. Soon, Zhou dug out some gray pottery and some jade-like ornament. Although Zhou didn't know what the ornaments were for, the quality of the jade told him that they were of poor quality. They weren't anything good. These things look like antiques, but antiques don't have much value in this era, Wang Yao said. Zhou knowledge of history was limited, so he didn't know what era these things were from. He roughly guessed that they were from the Shang and Zhou dynasties. Zhou continued digging and dug out some strange items. Among them, they were mainly gray pottery and bronze. Although there were other items, they had probably rotted away due to the passage of time. As he dug, Zhou eyes suddenly lit up. A hard object appeared under his finger. It looked like jade, but on careful look, he realized that it was actually bone. What kind of bones are these? Zhou slowly plucked away the soil on the bones and soon realized that the bones were connected. They weren't like ordinary bones. As the flesh and blood rotted, the bones would separate. The bones below were connected, but the flesh and blood were long gone. For some reason, the joints of the bones didn't separate. They were still firmly glued together. When Zhou dug out the entire skeleton, he realized that it was the skeleton of a giant bird. Furthermore, it was very complete without any missing bones. Chapter 1496. The skeleton was already in a half-fossilized state. Some places still maintained the luster of bones, crystalline like jade, but some places were as dim as fossils. There were also many potholes. Just from the skeleton, the bird was probably 4 to 5 meters tall when it stood up. There was no bird creature of such size in history. Was there such a huge bird in that era? Zhou suspected if this was the legendary mystic bird. After all, no one had seen such a huge bird in that era. It was normal to treat such a huge bird as a divine bird. Unfortunately, there were only bones left. There were no feathers, so it was unknown if its feathers were black. He didn't discover any essence energy fluctuations on the bird bone. It seemed to be an ordinary skeleton, so Zhou placed it to the side and continued digging. He dug out some gray pottery fragments and even found some stone tools. They looked like knives and axes, and they were extremely crude. If he had seen these stone tools by the side of the road, Zhou would definitely have thought that they were ordinary strange-shaped stones. Zhou dug through all the nearby areas. Apart from the ancient junk, only the bird skeleton was of some interest. He was somewhat disappointed that he didn't find any dimensional zones or mysterious items. Turning back, Zhou wanted to sort out the junk he had dug up and store it in the chaos space. Although the junk was useless to him, it was very likely an irreplaceable treasure to a historian. Zhou planned on putting it away. When Earth became truly peaceful in the future, these things might become priceless treasures. Zhou came in front of the pile of junk and couldn't help but frown after looking at it for a while. He had dug up quite a number of things, piling them up like a small mountain. However, Zhou could clearly sense that the pile of junk was much smaller than before. In order to confirm that he hadn't remembered wrongly, Zhou went through the junk one by one and placed it to the other side. There's indeed a lot less. The bronze that looks like a carrot is gone. There are also many gray pottery and utensils. They're all gone. As many of the utensils looked strange, Zhou didn't know what they were, so they left a deep impression. Now, he couldn't find them no matter how hard he searched. He looked around, but he didn't find any traces of dimensional creatures or humans. Zhou used Great Brahma to observe the particles in the air, but he didn't discover any traces of other living beings. What the hell? Did those things grow legs and run away? Zhou combed through it again to confirm that he hadn't remembered wrongly. As a result, when he counted, he realized that there were even fewer items than before. The few items that he had just taken were now gone. What the hell? Zhouwen looked around warily, thinking that some terrifying existence had snuck over. However, after waiting for a while, there was no movement. Truth listener didn't discover any clues. If that thing can really prevent me from sensing it at such a close distance and can even secretly take it away, he could have just plucked my head off. There's no need to go through so much trouble. Zhouwen thought carefully and felt that something was amiss. He decided to count again. This time, something was missing again. Zhouwen hadn't even noticed that so many things had disappeared right under his nose. Zhouwen summoned his companion beasts and got them to guard his surroundings while he paid close attention to the pile of trash. The little bear had been licking the bee by the side. It had just finished eating and crawled back to Zhouwen's side, looking curiously at the trash on the ground. After waiting for a while, there was no movement. Even the soul reflection mirror and the two golden WRMs didn't react. Zhouwen kept staring at the pile of trash, but he didn't discover anything missing. After a period of time, Zhouwen didn't discover anything. It didn't seem like anything was missing, so he counted the trash again. However, he realized that a few more items were missing. Holy sh*t, what the hell? How did it go missing? Zhouwen was dumbfounded. He searched the ground, but he didn't discover anything. With a thought, Zhouwen summoned a large group of musical note sprites. Under Zhouwen's orders, the musical note sprites attached themselves to the pieces of trash. Every piece of bronze, every piece of gray pottery, and even the fragments had a musical note sprite attached to them. Zhouwen insisted on figuring out how those things had vanished. Zhouwen widened his eyes as he stared intently at the pile of items. At the same time, he used his connection with the musical note sprites to monitor all the trash. Suddenly, Zhouwen felt one of the musical note sprites vanish. Before he could take a closer look at what the vanished musical note sprite belonged to, he lost contact with a few more musical note sprites. He couldn't sense them no matter how hard he tried. Zhouwen hurriedly ordered the remaining musical note sprites to fly up with the items they were attached to. Then, he searched for the few musical note sprites that he couldn't contact. He didn't find the missing musical note sprites, but he realized that the other items had been flown up by the musical note sprite. Only the skeleton of the giant bird remained on the ground. Could it be that the missing items have something to do with it? Zhouwen carefully sized up the skeleton and realized that the musical note sprites that were attached to it had vanished. It wasn't a problem for the musical note sprites to disappear, but the few musical note sprites that had disappeared at the same time had also vanished. Only this skeleton had the musical note sprites that had attached themselves to it, but it was still here. Zhouwen summoned another musical note sprite and made it attach itself to the giant bird's skeleton. Then, Zhouwen kept staring at it. After a while, something strange happened. The musical note sprite on the giant bird's skeleton vanished into thin air without any warning, nor did there be any spatial fluctuations. How can this be? Zhouwen widened his eyes, almost unable to believe what he had seen. Now that he thought about it carefully, it seemed that the items that had previously disappeared were all near the giant bird's skeleton. Zhouwen placed a few pieces of bronze and gray pottery on the giant bird's skeleton. After a while, the fragments magically vanished. Zhouwen watched them disappear, but he still didn't know what kind of power had made them disappear. It was as though they had vanished into thin air. There seems to be something wrong with this giant bird's skeleton. Zhouwen carefully sized up the giant bird's skeleton, but he didn't discover anything different about it. However, after what had happened, Zhouwen naturally didn't believe that it was just an ordinary bird's skeleton. Chapter 1497. Zhouwen experimented a few more times, and was certain that anything that came into contact with the giant bird's skeleton for a period of time would vanish into thin air. Strangely, Zhouwen didn't sense any spatial fluctuations. Zhouwen could understand if it was the power of spatial teleportation, but it was somewhat strange for items to vanish without any spatial fluctuations. Zhouwen still hadn't figured out where the missing items had gone. If they had disintegrated, there should have been some matter left after the disintegration, but Zhouwen didn't even see the particles after the disintegration. If it was teleportation, the companion beasts would have lost contact with Zhouwen after they disappeared. Zhouwen wasn't sure what had happened to them, so he naturally didn't know where they had been teleported to. Since he couldn't figure it out, Zhouwen had no choice but to bury the giant bird skeleton again. He didn't dare put it directly into the chaos space. If the chaos bead was gone, it would be a huge loss. Strangely enough, anything that touched the giant bird skeleton would vanish, but the soil here wouldn't vanish. Zhouwen got some soil from elsewhere and placed it on the giant bird skeleton. After a while, it vanished. This place really isn't an ordinary place. Zhouwen dug up some nearby areas and discovered quite a number of gray pottery and bronze items. However, they were only ordinary antiques without any practical value. The various factions were studying the planet that had recently appeared on the Rubik's Cube. Some factions had already attempted to send people over, but they were all death warriors or death row prisoners. They wanted to figure out what kind of dimensional zone was on the planet. Strangely, after the various factions tried, they realized that the Rubik's Cube could be activated, but they couldn't teleport people over. Until one time, someone dripped 4 people's blood on the Rubik's Cube. Under the Rubik's glow, the 4 of them vanished. However, the Rubik's Cube only shook for a moment before returning to normal. It was as though nothing had happened. It was unknown if the 4 people were dead or alive. Before long, many factions discovered this phenomenon. Only 4 people could activate the Rubik's Cube. It wouldn't work if there were too few people or too many people. However, the people who teleported over basically died immediately. They didn't send any news back. The Rubik's Cube only shook for a moment before there was no movement. The temperature on that planet is too high. Ordinary humans can't withstand it at all. It's useless even if they teleport over. In the bureau, an inspector was reporting to Wei Guo. The censor had done the most experiments, and a large number of death row prisoners had already died. Wei Guo didn't look up as he continued reading the information in his hand. It was a star chart, but it wasn't a modern star chart. Instead, it was an ancient star chart used to distinguish celestial bodies. The experiment ends here. Don't touch the magic cube for now, Wei Guo said to the censor as he looked at the star chart. Yes, Director. The inspector responded, hesitated for a moment, and said, Director, now all parties are asking us for information, and the League of Defender is the most pressing. How should we reply? Wei Guo placed the star map in his hand on the table and pushed it in front of the censor. He said indifferently, Make a few copies of this star map. If anyone comes to ask for more information, give them a star map if the benefits are sufficient. Will that work? The bureau picked up the star map and looked at it before looking at Wei Guo in puzzlement. Although this star map was an ancient version, it wasn't too rare. It wouldn't be difficult to get his hands on it. Go ahead. Wei Guo didn't explain and got him to leave. After the censor left, Wei Guo held his chin with his hand and thought for a moment. As though he had thought of something interesting, he picked up his phone and edited the star map he had just taken. He clicked on a friend and sent it over. Zhouwen was studying the giant bird skeleton when he suddenly heard his phone ring. He took out his phone and realized that it was a message from Wei Guo. What does this mean? Zhouwen clicked on the message and realized that it was a star map. It was a very crude one. The stars marked on it weren't as detailed as the current star map. Furthermore, there weren't any names of the stars. However, on the star chart, there was a star that was marked with a red circle. Zhouwen compared the star map with his singularity universe, but he couldn't tell which cosmos these stars belonged to. This was because Zhou Wen's singularity universe was very detailed, and the star map was missing too many stars, so it was difficult to compare them. Is this star the planet in the Rubik's Cube? Zhou Wen sent a message to Wei Gu. Yes, Wei Gu replied simply. What's the name of this planet? Zhou Wen had no choice but to continue sending messages. Think about it yourself. Wei Gu was even more straightforward this time. Wouldn't it be easier to tell me? Zhou Wen said gloomily. I like seeing you want to know but don't know. How about this? Beg me properly and I'll tell you out of kindness. After Wei Gu sent the message, the corners of his mouth curled up smugly. When Zhou Wen saw Wei Ji's message, he closed the chat window. What a joke. I have so many teachers here. I don't believe that I can't recognize a star map. Zhou Wen took the star map to Yu Qiubai. After Yu Qiubai looked at the star map, he glanced at Zhou Wen and said, Little one, you should take some time to learn about culture apart from cultivation. This star map is the ancient division of the North Pole. The star circled with a red line is the first star of the Big Dipper. It's called Dubhe, also known as Ravenous Wolf. This is the Big Dipper? Zhou Wen looked at the star map again and realized that with Dubhe as the starting point, the 6 stars behind it formed a shape that resembled a spoon. He couldn't help but feel a little ashamed. Actually, this can't be blamed on you. The star maps drawn by ancient people naturally aren't as detailed as they are now. However, you should still recognize such an obvious celestial body like the Big Dipper. After Yu Qiubai said that, he asked curiously, Why are you suddenly interested in star maps? The planet shown on the Rubik's Cube is very likely Dubhe. Zhou Wen checked the information about the Big Dipper on the internet and suddenly discovered something amazing. The Big Dipper was the brightest celestial body in the North Pole. This was the ancient division of the East District, and according to the division of the West District, the Big Dipper belonged to the Ursa Major constellation. Zhou Wen couldn't help but recall the giant bear that had ascended into the cosmos from Laojun Tai. He thought to himself, could it be that the giant bear has something to do with this dimensional zone? However, constellations were Western, while the giant bear was an Eastern dimensional creature. Furthermore, it had ascended into the cosmos from Laojun Tai. He found it odd. Chapter 1498. Zhou Wen was naturally not the only one who knew this news. However, to most people, it didn't make much of a difference whether the planet on the magic cube was Dubhe or not. Quack, it said that the planet is the Dubhe star of the Big Dipper. What do you think? Xia Luchuan immediately called Zhang Chuanqiu. The Zhang family was best at these things. Zhang Chuanqiu said, That's the Dubhe star of the Big Dipper, but I advise you not to target it. Why? Xia Luchuan asked in puzzlement. You should know that the Dubhe star is also called the Greedy Wolf star, right? Zhang Chuanqiu said. I know. Although I can't observe the celestial phenomena at night like you, I've heard of Star-Lord Covetous Wolf's name. Isn't he synonymous with Wisdom Star and Lucky Star? Xia Luchuan said. That's because you don't know much about greed. Heaven's pivot is indeed auspicious, but under certain circumstances, greed is an ominous omen. Before things are clear, it's best not to touch it, Zhang Chuanqiu said solemnly. For real. Xia Luchuan was still in disbelief. It's up to you whether you believe it or not. Zhang Chuanqiu didn't say anything else and hung up. I didn't say that I didn't believe you. Why are you so angry? Xia Luchuan mumbled and put down the phone in his hand. Many people asked Zhang Chuanqiu about it, but Zhang Chuanqiu only said some ambiguous words to ordinary people. Only a few people would persuade them not to touch the Dubhe star. I have to get the Dubhe companion beast back no matter what. Mad Sword Immortal Silhouette appeared in the unfinished Tower of Babel, giving orders to Immortal and the group of protectors. Your Excellency, we will definitely do our best to fight for it. However, you should also know that there are many heroes on Earth now. Our League of Defender doesn't have an absolute advantage. Furthermore, there are still variables like universe creatures. It's unknown if we can obtain the Dubhi companion beast, Immortal said with a bow. I only want results, Mad Sword Immortal coldly said. I also hope that there will be a good result, Xian said, neither servile nor overbearing. Crazed Sword Immortal's gaze was like a sword as he stared at the Immortal. It was as if he wanted to split the Immortal's body apart. However, the Immortal just stood there with his eyes lowered as if he didn't see anything. Whoever can retrieve the Dubhi Star's companion beast can become the spokesperson of my Immortals in the human world. I will personally bestow him with the strongest guardian of the Immortals, said Berserk Sword Immortal. The Celestials had always respected the strong, and Berserk Sword Immortal believed that humans were the same. He wanted to encourage the League of Defender to split. However, Blood Shaman and the other guardians did not seem to hear him as they remained on both sides of the Immortal. A cold glint flashed in the Mad Sword Immortal's eyes, but he forcefully suppressed the killing intent in his heart. It was just as Wang Mingyuan said. The current situation on Earth was rather clear. Even if the Immortals started to cultivate new forces of power, they would not be able to take effect within a short period of time. If they want to continue to maintain competitiveness on Earth, they can only continue to use the League of Defender, and there are not many other options. The 6 great clans had always been vassals of the Holy Land. Although the 6 great clans wanted to break away from the Holy Land's control, they might not be able to do so completely. Secondly, even if they could escape, people who had just jumped out of a wolf's den probably wouldn't easily jump into a tiger's den. Then there was the Federation government, the Holy Spirit Association, and the various warlords. Under Hui Haifeng's leadership, the Federation government had always been developing the strength of humans, making it impossible for them to be used by the Immortals. The Holy Spirit would directly devour the Guardians. If the Immortals cooperated with it, they would probably only be giving them food. It would be difficult for them to truly control it. As for the various warlords, Berserk Sword Immortal didn't mind giving them some benefits if there was a chance to be used by the Immortals. However, there weren't many warlords that could reach the level of the 6 great clans. It wouldn't be a short period of time to control them. At this stage, Berserk Sword Immortal only needed to continue using the League of Defender to work for the Immortals. However, Berserk Sword Immortal had already made up his mind to establish a faction that was completely obedient to the Immortals as soon as possible and kick the League of Defender out. Don't worry. When you need it, my race will definitely help you. The Tower of God has to be repaired as soon as possible. Otherwise, even if my race wants to help you, we won't be able to deliver it to you. Although Berserk Sword Immortal said that, he thought to himself, I only need to repair a portion of the Tower of God. I can use it to enter Earth and re-establish a human faction that belongs to the Immortals. Once I succeed, I'll kill that bastard Wang Mingyuan first. The Tower of God has been attacked twice in a row. Many of the materials can no longer be obtained. It's very difficult to repair it. I wonder if you have a way to repair it, Your Excellency? Immortal kicked the ball back to Berserk Sword Immortal. Although Berserk Sword Immortal wanted to kill Immortal with one strike, he couldn't do so. All he could do was say, there's naturally a way. Back then, my race placed guardian cocoons in many mystic realms. At this moment, those mystic realms have already turned into dimensional zones. I will send you the information regarding the guardian cocoons. After you find the guardian cocoons, use the help of the guardians inside to easily occupy those dimensional zones and obtain the resources inside. We will definitely do our best to serve you, Your Excellency. Immortal led the group of guardians and bowed. Zhouwen hadn't figured out what was going on with the land and the giant bird skeleton, but he didn't dare take the risk to experiment. All he could do was ignore it for the time being. At that moment, Zhouwen was studying his companion beast. After the 2 golden WYRMs gave birth, another golden WYRM was born. However, this Golden WRM seemed a little different from its parent. Golden WRM, Calamity Grade, Evolvable, Life Providence, Metal Life Form Life Soul, Gold Essence Wheel of Destiny. Love is firmer than gold Terror Form. Stator, S-Grade, Calamity Domain. True Gold Fire Refinement, Human, Strength, 100 Speed, 100 Constitution, 100 Essence Energy, 100 Talent Skill. Midas Touch, Strangulation, Unstoppable, Dominating Body Companion Form. Stator Zhou didn't know what Stator was in its companion form. When the Golden WRM appeared in its companion form, he realized that its body had transformed into a coiling dragon pillar. It was clearly a pillar, but he didn't know why it was called Stator. With the experience of the Son of Heaven's 3 swords, Zhou attempted to place the 3 golden WRMs into the fusion frame. Indeed, they could be fused. Furthermore, the success rate was 99.9%. There was almost no chance of failure. Should I fuse them or not? Zhou was somewhat hesitant. After all, there were 3 Calamity-grade creatures. If they fused, even if they produced a Hell-grade creature, it would only be 1 companion beast. It didn't seem worth it. Chapter 1499. The stats and skills are about the same. If 1 Golden Flood Dragon can't deal with an opponent, adding 2 more Golden Flood Dragons shouldn't be of much use. Zhou hesitated for a moment before pressing the fusion button. Golden light flashed as the 3 Golden Flood Dragons emitted a shocking glow. Finally, the entire phone screen was filled with golden light. When the light gradually dissipated, the 3 Golden Flood Dragons vanished. All that was left on the phone screen was a pair of golden scissors. The 2 Golden Flood Dragons were the scissors blades, and 1 Golden Flood Dragon was the anchor, transforming into a Golden Flood Dragon scissors. Golden Flood Dragon Scissors, Calamity Grade, Evolvable, Life Providence, Metal Life Form Life Soul, Gold Essence Wheel of Destiny. Love is stronger than gold Terror Form. Golden Flood Dragon Scissors, S-Grade, Calamity Domain. True Gold Fire Refinement, Hell, Strength, 200 Speed, 200 Constitution, 200 Essence Energy, 200 Talent Skill. Midas Touch, Strangulation, Unstoppable, Dominance Body, Cleaving in 2 companion form. Golden Flood Dragon Scissors. Zhou couldn't help but be overjoyed when he saw the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors stats. Although it was a 3-for-1 exchange, the stats of the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors were definitely better than the 3 Golden Flood Dragons. Ignoring everything else, the Golden Flood Dragon at the human stage only had 100 stats, but the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors at the Hell stage had doubled its stats. The abilities didn't seem to have changed much, but there was an additional cleaving in 2 skill that looked very powerful. Who should I use to test it out? Zhou looked at the dungeon on his phone and realized that the Venus dungeon had been refreshed an hour ago. It was a good time to try it out. Crack, crack. The moment the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors appeared, the Metal Guards and Golden Battle God were sliced into 2. No one could withstand the might of its scissors. However, the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors also had a flaw. It could only cut through 1 creature's body at a time. It didn't have any Yoi attacks. When the Calamity Gunner appeared, Zhou used the Soul Reflection Mirror to make the Calamity Gunner appear. With a golden flash, the Calamity Gunner's speed wasn't considered slow, but it still failed to react and was sliced into 2. Ding! A companion egg dropped with a crisp sound. Zhou was immediately overjoyed as he controlled the blood-colored avatar to rush over and pick up the companion egg. Zhou had been coveting the Calamity Gunner companion egg for a long time. Its long-range attack was truly impressive, especially the 7th shot. Without any means to restrain it, one wouldn't be able to escape the fatal shot. When luck comes, nothing can stop it. Zhou excitedly checked the Calamity Gunner companion egg stats. Gold Sniper, Calamity Grade, Evolvable, Life Providence, Sharpshooter Life Soul, Spear God Wheel of Life Spirit. 7 Sure Kill S Rank Calamity Domain. Bullet Domain, Mortal Level, Strength. 168 Speed. 179 Constitution. 107 Essence Energy. 178 Innate Skills. Unlimited Bullets, Metal Evasion, Super Rapid Shooting, Super Long Range Shooting, Bullet of Doom. Companion Form. Sniper Rifle. Haha, it's indeed a sniper rifle. Zhou was overjoyed. He had indeed been coveting this item for a long time. Compared to melee weapons, Zhou preferred firing from afar. Melee combat was something he had no choice but to do. If he could kill the enemy from afar, why would he charge forward and risk his life? Without any hesitation, Zhou hatched the gold sniper. This non-primary type companion beast's stats had already reached a certain level, so there was no need to waste crystals to raise its stats. To Zhou, it was very practical. Apart from its weak physique, the gold sniper's other stats were pretty good. It was considered pretty good at the human stage. A massive amount of essence energy was absorbed by the companion egg. Soon, the companion egg transformed into wisps of golden light that landed in Zhou palm, forming a golden sniper rifle pattern. After a flash, the golden sniper rifle pattern slowly disappeared. Zhou extended his hand and a golden sniper rifle appeared in his hand. However, the sniper rifle was larger than Zhou had imagined. Its style was very similar to the Barrett M82A1 sniper rifle, but it was even larger. It wasn't impossible to hold it in one's hand, but it was a little uncomfortable. With Zhou's inhuman physique, he could hold it and shoot, but it seemed like it was better to hold it at a fixed spot. Zhou changed dungeons and entered Chess Mountain. He set up the sniper rifle in the cave and aimed it at the fake immortals on Deer Terrace Pavilion. After aiming for a while, Zhou pulled the trigger. Bam! A fake immortal's head exploded as it returned to its original fox demon form and fell into a pool of blood. Bam! 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 Zhou shot one by one, blowing up the heads of the fake immortals. The butt of the rifle pressed against his shoulder, causing Zhou's shoulder to involuntarily tremble with the rhythm of the shooting. Seeing the fake immortals spin around, but unable to find the enemy, all he could do was have their heads blown up one after another. The pleasure was indescribable. What a good item! This thing's shooting range is too far. It's much longer than the range of ordinary sniper rifles on Earth. Ordinary creatures won't be able to discover where the bullet came from. The more Zhou looked at it, the more he liked it. This item was an assassination weapon. In the future, if Zhou wanted to find trouble with the League of Defender again, he didn't need to approach the League of Defenders headquarters. 100 kilometers away, a single bullet could send those guardians to their death. With a bullet traveling at the speed of light, 100 kilometers was nothing. However, on second thought, the League of Defender now belonged to Jiang Yan. It wasn't appropriate for him to kill guardians. I should find an opportunity to make a trip to the Holy Land. I'll guard outside the Holy Land. I'll blow up every saint that comes out. Let's see who else dares to work for the Holy Land. With this in mind, Zhou wished he could grow wings and fly to the Holy Land. Of course, this was only a thought. It was clearly impossible to overturn the Holy Land with just a sniper rifle. Now, I have the golden sniper rifle for long-range combat and the golden flood dragon scissors for melee combat. With the soul reflection mirror as support, as long as I don't encounter a heaven realm dimensional creature, I should be able to put up a fight. Zhou searched his dungeon again and realized that Yang City had already respawned. He directly entered Yang City and released the golden flood dragon scissors. Every blood shadow that came was cut apart. The sniper showed no mercy. One shot was as simple as shooting balloons on the street. After the Kuei Ox appeared, the golden flood dragon scissors flew over and sliced it into two. The Kuei Ox's powerful defense failed to withstand the force of the scissors. The sharpness of the golden flood dragon scissors was chilling. Too powerful. Zhou realized that he had too many weapons, but his defense couldn't keep up. The Kuei Ox only dropped one essence energy crystal. Zhou Wen's essence energy stats temporarily didn't have any room to improve, so he fed it to the soul reflection mirror, which had relatively low stats. Are you interested in cooperating? Zhou Wen was just about to find a few more places to test the power of the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors and the sniper rifle when he suddenly received a message. Chapter 1500. Cooperate with what? Zhou Wen asked in puzzlement when he saw that it was Jiang Yan who had sent him the message. Don't you know? 4 people are needed to enter Dubhe Star. No more, no less, Jiang Yan said. Don't tell me you're really that suicidal? Everything about Dubhe Star is unknown now. Aren't you courting death by entering? Zhou Wen didn't believe that this was a good opportunity to enter Dubhe Star. If he rashly entered without knowing the situation inside, even a calamity grade might not be able to come out alive. Of course not now. I just want you to be mentally prepared. I'll inform you when the time comes, Jiang Yan said. Then I really have to think about it, Zhou Wen answered. Don't you have any questions? Jiang Yan sent another message. You will say what you can. You won't say what you can't say even if I ask, Zhou Wen said frankly. There are many things that can't be confirmed now. It's useless to say anything else. However, this might be an opportunity to turn the situation around, Jiang Yan said. What situation? Zhou Wen was momentarily puzzled by Jiang Yan's words. Think about it yourself, Jiang Yan replied after sending the message. Zhou Wen held his phone and carefully read Jiang Yan's message again. He felt that this sentence was very interesting. There were many possibilities that could be contained in it. There were both minor and major theories. If it's the greatest possibility, Zhou Wen thought about it carefully and found it impossible. After pondering for a moment, an idea surfaced in Zhou Wen's mind. He wanted to head to Dubhe Star to take a look. Of course, it was impossible for him to go through the magic cube. It might be difficult for other humans to reach Dubhe Star from the cosmos, but Zhou Wen wasn't one of them. The interstellar teleportation ability of the Singularity universe could easily allow him to reach Dubhe Star. With his defense, he could only reach the vicinity of Dubhe Star and not enter it. The high temperature of Dubhe Star shouldn't be able to injure him. Zhou Wen mainly wanted to see if there was a tiny palm symbol in Dubhe Star's dimensional zone. This was the most important to him. However, the universe was just too dangerous. Who knew if there were terrifying cosmic creatures waiting for an opportunity near Dubhe Star? Zhou Wen thought for a moment and decided to take the chick with him. Dubhe Star was too hot, so such a place was the chick stage. However, without the chick, it would be too dangerous for Guide City if the skeleton army appeared again. Typical companion beasts couldn't be too far from their owners. If Zhou Wen wanted to go to Dubhe Star, it would be too far away. It was impossible for him to leave a companion beast to watch over his home. This is a problem. Little Bear is stupid, and I don't know how strong it is. It's definitely not a good idea to leave it to guard the house. It's a pity that the antelope didn't come to Guide City. Otherwise, I would be at ease with it in school. After some thought, Zhou Wen failed to come up with a good idea. He was afraid that something would happen to Guide City while he was gone. Old Zhou, what's wrong with you? Why didn't you call me over when there's such a fun place? Just as Zhou Wen was considering the matter, he suddenly heard a familiar voice. Before long, Li Xian kicked open the courtyard door and swaggered in. Can't you wait for me to open the door? He realized that Li Xian hadn't come alone. There was someone behind him. Qin Zhen? Why are the two of you together? Zhou Wen saw that the person who had come with Li Xian was the now famous female sword immortal, Qin Zhen. Don't misunderstand. We just happened to come along. She's here for you, Li Xian said with a nefarious smile. Senior, I heard that you want to build a human city in Guide City. Does the school still lack teachers? Qin Zhen asked Zhou Wen. Yes, of course. However, the treatment here isn't comparable to Sunset College's. You have seen the situation here. I don't know when the school will return to normal, Zhou said. Just give me a place to stay, Qingjin said seriously. What are you still thinking about? Hurry up and arrange a place for her to stay, Li Xian jeered. All right, as long as you are willing to stay, I won't mistreat you in the future. Zhou was lacking in manpower. An expert in the way of the sword like Qingjin was a tutor at Sunset College to begin with. It was truly impossible to find one. Qingjin didn't say anything else and only nodded. I'll find a place for you to stay first. Zhou was just about to take them to find a place to stay when he heard a voice coming from outside the yard. Zhou, if you don't mind, count the two of us in. Accompanied by the man's voice, two more people walked in. Tian Xiangdong, Fang Ruoxi, why are you here? Zhou couldn't help but be surprised when he saw his two old classmates. Just like Zhou, they had been admitted to Sunset College. However, Zhou didn't graduate. The two of them left Luoyang after graduation. As they didn't have any contact, Zhou didn't know where they went after graduation. However, he didn't see them in Guide City this time, so Zhou imagined that they had moved to another city. What are you talking about? This is our hometown. If our hometown is in trouble, we naturally have to come back to support it. Tian Xiangdong chuckled. Actually, I'm currently working in the League's political department. The higher-ups sent me back to be a spy to gather intelligence and report it. By the side, Fang Ruoxi said bluntly, my situation is about the same. If you have anything that's not too important, you can leave it to me. It's fine to do something for our hometown as long as it's within our capabilities. The two of them made their intentions very clear and left the choice to Zhou. Zhou smiled and said, it's naturally great to have free labor. Come along. I'll find a place for you to stay first. Zhou really wasn't afraid that the other factions would send spies. Even if he was afraid, there would be other spies coming even if it wasn't Fang Ruoxi and Tian Xiangdong. Instead of wasting time guessing who the spies were, he might as well keep Fang Ruoxi and Tian Xiangdong. Regardless of whether they really cared about their old friendship, they were still very good laborers. They were elites who had graduated from Sunset College and worked in government departments. Although the school's accommodation was extremely tight, Zhou still thought of a way to arrange a single room for them. Although it was converted from a school office, it was already the best with the current conditions. Qingjin didn't mind at all. After tidying up the room and putting down his luggage, he came over and asked Zhou, Senior, what can I do for you? Don't worry. Rest up today. There will be many things waiting for you in the future, Zhou said with a smile. Qingjin nodded and really returned to his room to rest. This junior isn't bad, Li Xian said with a smile as he walked. Chapter 1501. Old Zhou, what exactly are your plans? Don't tell me you really want to build a human city in such a place? Although this is your hometown, there aren't any barriers here at all. There are unexplored dimensional zones everywhere. You can't possibly stay here your entire life, right? Li Xian said after returning to Zhou's place, leaving only the two of them. I originally wanted to find a dimensional zone to build a city, but unfortunately, I haven't found a suitable place for the time being. I can only make do with this place for now, Zhou said as he stroked the bear's back. I studied the nearby dimensional zones before coming. There's really no suitable place to build a city. Guide Ancient City is a good choice. Once the door is closed, it won't be easy to attack. But that place is too dangerous now. We can't enter at all, much less build a city, Li Xian said. If it was that easy to build a city, this place would have long been occupied. The various factions are eyeing this place, but they haven't done anything yet. It's obvious how difficult it is to build a city here. Zhou also knew that it wasn't a good place to build a city. You already know that? Why are you still building a city here? Li Xian looked at Zhou in puzzlement. If it's done so easily, what's the point? Zhouwen said with a smile. Li Xian curled his lips and said disdainfully, Do you think I don't know what kind of person you are? If it wasn't for something, would you have built a city here? I think if you have the time and energy, you would just lie in bed and play a few rounds of games. Zhouwen laughed. You know me best. I won't hide it from you. There's something very important to me in Guide Ancient City, but I don't have the ability to take it now. Therefore, I have to build a city here and guard this place to prevent the things in the ancient city from falling into the hands of others. Do you still remember that you once said that you wanted to build a city that belongs to us? How about it? Stay here. This city will be ours. Cut the crap. Why else would I come here? Do you think this is a tourist area? Li Xian curled his lips. That's good. With you around, I'm relieved, Zhouwen said with a smile. What do you mean? From what you say, you want to be a hands-off boss. Li Xian immediately felt that something was amiss. That's not what I mean. However, I do want to make a trip out and take a look at Dubhe, Zhouwen said. You can watch, but don't go in, Li Xian said. I know. Familiarize yourself with the situation here first. Once you're familiar with it, I'll make a trip. Zhouwen planned on giving Li Xian some time. Do you think our Li family's intelligence network is useless? I'm afraid I know the situation here better than you do. Alright, do whatever you need to do. Leave this to me. With Qin Jin's help, as long as it's not a natural disaster, nothing will happen, Li Xian said smugly. How is your second brother? When Li Xian mentioned the intelligence network, Zhouwen thought of Li Mabai. The Li family's intelligence network had nothing to do with Li Xian. It was established by him. It's fine. He's doing very well. He can eat, sleep, and curse. If it wasn't for the fact that his eyeballs are still in the cabinet at home, I would have suspected that he's blind. He's even more normal than a normal person. He's so normal that he's a little perverted, Li Xian said with a smile. I cultivate in an essence energy art with healing powers. I can try to see if I can restore his eyes, Zhouwen said. It's useless. He said it himself. His eyes are the eyes of a ghost. If he can't restore them, he'll be like that for the rest of his life. However, he also said that you don't need to use your eyes to see things. It's even more useless to use your eyes to see people. Therefore, it doesn't matter if he has eyes or not. When Li Xian said that, his expression was somewhat helpless. Zhouwen guessed that Li Mabai was definitely educating him when he said that. The two of them chatted for a while. Early the next morning, Zhouwen called Qin Jin, Fang Ruoshi, and company over. He introduced Yu Qiubai and the other core members to them so that they could do things in the future. Before leaving, Zhouwen took the chick back with him, but he didn't tell anyone that he would be leaving for a period of time. Apart from Li Xian, Zhouwen didn't plan on letting anyone know about this. If everything went smoothly, he should be back soon. There was no need to alarm anyone else. After returning to his room, Zhouwen took the chick and used the Singularity Universe's teleportation ability. With Dubhe as his target, he teleported over. When Zhouwen teleported out, he saw a sea of light and flames. The temperature was terrifyingly high. Despite wearing the dragon-imprisoned armor, Zhouwen still felt his body heat up. However, the chick seemed very excited. It opened its mouth and sucked in, causing the surrounding flames to surge into its mouth like spring water. Zhouwen immediately felt the temperature around him drop significantly. When he focused his gaze, he realized that he was very close to Dubhe. The active flames on the planet's fountain sometimes exceeded Zhouwen's location. Even steel would instantly melt into juice here. Zhouwen raised Truth Listener's ability to its limits and flew close to the huge planet with the chick. This planet was many times bigger than the sun. Wherever Zhouwen flew, there were flames everywhere. The dazzling light made his eyes uncomfortable. With the chick around, the high temperature wasn't too bad. The nearby flames were swallowed by the chick. He didn't discover any dimensional zones within the range he could sense. However, the light and fire essence energy on this planet were extremely terrifying. What was even more terrifying was that there was a planet that emitted a terrifying glow near this planet. Although Zhou had long heard that Dubhe was a visual double star with a companion star, he was still shocked when he saw it with his own eyes. However, after flying around the two planets for a while, Zhou didn't even find a dimensional zone, much less the tiny palm symbol. Strange, could it be that the dimensional zone is inside the planet? If that's the case, it'll be a little difficult to find a dimensional zone without using the magic cube. Zhou looked at the planet that was even more terrifying than the sun. If he wanted to rush in, he wasn't sure if the dragon-imprisoned armor could withstand it. Just as Zhou was thinking about how to find a dimensional zone, he suddenly saw the chick's feathers stand on end as it stared intently at the flames below. What's that? Zhou traced its gaze and saw a huge shadow swaying in the flames. It was like a giant whale in the sea. All he could see was a shadow, but he couldn't determine what it was. Seeing it swim in the flames, the shadow was even bigger than an aircraft carrier. Zhou didn't wish to take the risk and planned on returning to Earth with the chick. However, to his surprise, the chick suddenly let out a long cry and spread its wings, charging towards the shadow in the flames. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.